Good evening, everybody. Welcome to your FPL BlackBox ahead of Gameweek 3. You're joined by myself and Mr. Let's Walk FPL himself, Mr. Mark Southerns.
How you doing? Yeah, I'm good. Yeah, survived the match of the day challenge. Well, I guess we should touch on that, shouldn't we? How that went? And
it was like a lifetime ago.
Yeah, it does seem like ages ago. I mean, it was a real roller coaster, and we really enjoyed it. It's probably one of the best ones we've done, isn't it? In terms of it being good and bad, which is nice.
I think it's the most fun I've had on any stream I've done. I think it was just, it was fun having you here. It was fun, all the highs and lows. The order of match of the day was just was perfect, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's almost like they did that on purpose, wasn't it? It was very strange.
It was, yeah.
But giving me the joy of watching Son get his goals, which really did salve the hat-trick from Haaland, was great. So, yeah, we'll look back on that game. We've got lots to cover tonight. I'm off to a music festival tomorrow, so I've got an early start. So I don't really need like a 2 to 3 hour stream, but we might actually end up having to do.
It's what the people want. Already seeing some comments say, make this a mammoth show. I just want to shout out to my friend Phil May, who's watching with his 1 week old newborn as well. I think he's hoping that our dulcet tones send little Harry to sleep. So congratulations, Phil, and yeah, hope we send your kid to sleep. That's always our aim, isn't it, Mark?
Yeah, well, let's see how we go. Who's in the room? Let's have a look. Nigel's in. I see Dan Henning, Bobby Whitby, Andrew McGaskill, Greg Fost, of course, P Jetta, Grady, loads of people, loads of new names as well. It's great. We've got 500 watching already, which is fantastic. Thank you, as always, for your support tonight and for Match of the Day Challenge and for the vids that I put out in the week. So that's really good. What are we covering tonight? As I told you, it was packed. Well, we've got some data to look back on. We're going to roll out the numbers. They don't mean a lot, but there's some quite interesting things to pick out. People have got dilemmas on Nkunku, Solanke, Isak. We're going to look at those. We're going to look at a couple of trends that I've spotted. We've got our own key performance indicator tables that we're rolling out for the first time. We're going to look at that. There's a couple of things in there. It was interesting, a few tactical things. Then, of course, we've got our predictions, captains, and our teams as well. We popped the ranks under our names, that's because for once we've had a good start, right?
Yeah, we started this year, didn't we? We said, there's no room for the ranks. We're going to do our name and our like Twitter, formerly Twitter X handle. There's no way we're going to do the ranks. So we both started quite strongly. And it's like, okay, we need to shoehorn these ranks in.
Funny that, isn't it? They might disappear. They might disappear when the few red arrows come our way. Before we get started, a word from our sponsors. Over to you to talk about Sleeper, Mr. Az.
Yes, I'm sure many people are aware of Sleeper by now. Obviously, lots of people, lots of content creators getting involved in that. We have a league, a Pick'em league. So we've got, I think, over 1,000 people entered into that now. Monthly prizes up to £500 a month worth of prizes to win for the person who comes top each month. So there's only 1 week left, but then it all starts again. So if you haven't already join this week, get a bit of a feel for it, and then in September you can smash it and try and win one of those prizes. All you got to do is pick the outcome of the games over the weekend, and the person who predicts the most over the month wins one of the prizes. So it's like a Steam Deck, an iPad, an iPhone, PlayStation. You can take your pick with whatever you want. There's a QR code on the screen. Download it, and also check out the Sleeper app because there's loads of cool features on it as well. And if you've got any comments or feedback about it, they'd love to hear from you. So drop them in the comments below.
We're going to be indulging in the draft game that they've got running as well.
God.
So be a lot of fun.
Yeah, we're doing a big content creator draft league with like Janny, Holly, the Wire guys are on it. And yeah, you and I are going to sync up our we won't do it in person, but we'll sync up our mics and stuff, and we'll be arguing over which players to pick.
It's going to be fun. We've never co-managed before, so that'd be very interesting to see how that goes. Indeed.
Nervous.
And also, we were talking to Billy about the prizes, and he couldn't believe what we were giving away, and he wanted to know how he ended himself, didn't he? So
yeah. And overall winner, so overall person of the season as well, wins I think £1,500 worth of vouchers or something like that. So if you haven't joined yet, you need to join now to get involved in it if you want to win some of the big prizes. So download it, click that QR code, scan it, whatever you need to do, and play Pick'em.
Let's get involved. Right, let's look at our game weeks. Let's start with you, Az. Let's go. There we go. Let's blow it up. Let's go small. Talk us through it, Az, for the podcast. Go through those scores there. So it's a healthy one, right?
It's a healthy one, yeah. So Henderson in goal. He's looking like a poor pick, but there isn't really another 4 or 5 goalkeeper option that's emerged. So And I think unless you've got Raya, you're probably not that happy with your goalkeeper anyway. So at least he's cheap. There's still some decent fixtures to come, but yeah, just him with the 1 point. Trent, Porro, and Robinson. It's a clean sweep of defensive returns, which I was very happy with. 6, 6, and 7. Saka, Jota, Gordon, and Smith Rowe also all returning. Gordon on the Sunday after match of the day. I watched that game. I thought he was poor. I thought Newcastle were poor. There he popped up with a goal just as I left the room to get a cup of tea. Just as I'd given up the hope and the faith. There he is. And max bonus as well. And rested tonight. So pretty happy with that. Haaland, captain, 34. I mean, I don't know who would go without him. He must be an absolute maniac.
There's more ways to skin a cat, as.
But I was happy with that. And then the failures really, Isak and Mateta. Mateta, obviously, the transfer. He came in for West Ham at home. They were really poor, lost comfortably to West Ham. And a blank for Isak. So just 1 assist in 2 decent-looking fixtures. And he's close to a drop, isn't he? And I think a lot of people are looking at ways to switch him to Watford, who's also underperformed, but has a great run to come.
Indeed, yeah. Some movement up front with obviously Solanke injury and Isak. Yeah, I mean, I don't so much think it's Isak. I just think Newcastle have looked lacklustre. And when we look at the data, we'll be able to see that come out over the first couple of games. It is early doors, of course. They're at Forest tonight. He's picked up a couple of knocks tonight already. So there's people on Isak watch at the City ground as we're streaming at the moment.
He's hurt his foot.
Yeah, here we are. I mean, again, though, Newcastle haven't looked great tonight as well. So there are, general concerns about Newcastle starts the season, which we'll touch on in a bit more detail. But yeah, I mean, that's a good score, isn't it? You didn't triple captain Haaland. Do you look back and regret that?
Yeah, it's easy to look back and wish you'd done it. It'd be nice to have got that chip over with. Like I said to your match today, my triple captain isn't going to get 17 points when I eventually use it. So would you take a cat trick from your triple captain? Of course you would. And like General used it on him, and lots of people on watching match today had used it on him. So you'd be delighted with that. I think you said it was was it you that said it was the most triple captains ever?
Yeah, 477,000 in a single game week. Normally, obviously, we captain a double game week. It's the most ever on a player in a single game week. Yeah.
So we knew it was going to be like that, didn't we? I think we called around 500,000 triple captainers. It's fun to still have it, though, even though you'd rather take the points and run. It's nice to still have it for a bit later on when the double game weeks come and things like that. But yeah, no chance of getting 17 points. So purely from points perspective, wish I'd used it.
I think you're being a bit defeatist there. I don't know. I
really?
think and a double game week, 17. I mean, when you look at it, that's like if Salah gets a double game week, that's just a goal in each game, 17 points for him. So
have you ever had 17 points from your triple captain
in a double game week? Yeah.
Have you?
Yeah.
I don't know.
I mean, it depends how they fall, right? It depends. We don't really know sitting here now how big the double game weeks will be and what candidates will have fall out of it. But I think if we get a heavy hitter in a double game week, I don't think 17 points is unobtainable. I think it's possible, particularly if it's a midfielder. Obviously, Haaland's a striker. And, as I say, that's 2 goals for Salah with bonus.
Yeah.
Or 2 goals for Palmer with bonus, right? So depending on how the double game weeks fall, if Saka, Palmer, or Salah get a double game week, it could be that we could.
You take 17 though.
Oh God, yeah, take it now. Absolutely. Yeah.
It's nice you're being optimistic, but
I'm trying to be. I'm trying to
take it and run.
Yeah. I didn't. Forest have equalised. I'm trying not to know the score because I'm recording the football, but I've seen it's 1-1, so that's fine. I'm not surprised because Forest were actually the better team in the first half anyway. But yes, sorry, as you were saying.
Well, I was just saying, I've still seen some tweets around, I'd much rather use my triple captain in a game week when I captain a differential and no one else has got him and it's worth more on that. I don't want to go down that road again. 17 points, you take that and run. I mean, if it does come to the end of the season, I'm 2 million in the world and I want to stick a Hail Mary triple captain on someone, that might be the answer. But, it's still only worth the third of the points. So he still needs to get 17 or it would have been the right decision to use it this week.
Yeah, a long way to go. But, I mean, it was obviously quite predictable in the end, wasn't it? When that third goal went in and on the moment on the video, it's like, I thought I'd got away with 2 and then he got that with 2 minutes to go. It was just,
this is all right. 2 goals.
I know, I was really cocky.
No. Oh, and it was Lewis. Oh, no.
No, when I was no. It probably was the most predictable hat trick you've ever seen. And it's his 12th since he arrived in the Premier League, which is crazy. Probably more to come. I didn't have him, but what I did have was 93 points anyway. So I've got through a really testing game week, and to come out of the first 2 game weeks and be unscathed and have a good rank and ahead of some Haaland managers, I'm obviously very delighted. 93 points.
You are?
Yeah. So yeah, it's good. It's my best start ever, I think, officially. I've never been at this point this early in the season. So let's see what I can do from that. The game week, Raya's been key. 10 points from him, maximum bonus and save point again. Pedro 6, Trent 6. Lewis came in and should have got more than 2 points, hit the bar from about 6 yards out, of course. Robinson 7. Smith Rowe got his goal for 10. Saka got another return for 6. Salah, my captain, delivered on the Sunday with a 10-pointer. Son was the hero with a brace, 16. And then João Pedro got the things rolling on the Saturday morning with a goal against United, the winner, of course. And then really only Isak, along with Lewis, the 2 players not to return. So I really can't complain with that. I really have spread the love. And it was a combination of those 9 players really just compensated for me not having Haaland. And I came through it, and I'm absolutely delighted to come through it with a green arrow and a decent rank.
You would not be saying that if you hadn't had the Quansah issue and you'd done Son to Foden, you'd be on 14 points less. So you'd be on 79?
I know, it's ironic, isn't it?
And then I think you'd be like, oh, maybe it wasn't the right decision. And, it's fun. Little butterfly effect.
It is. I said it on the video, didn't I? Because my plan was going into the season, so I'll have Son for game week 1. I'll move Son off to Foden game week 2 and have Foden in that game to try and cover City. And obviously, it didn't leak that Foden was ill. Nobody knew that, and Yelena fell foul of it, of course. And the only reason that I possibly didn't make that move is because Quansah was the biggest fire, and I felt like I had to move off Quansah. And I decided, with Son up against an Everton side, with Ashley Young suspended, and we thought Tarkowski was going to be missing as well. And, maybe it was the Ashley Young red card that really did make up my mind rather than the Quansah thing. But it just shows you fine margins, right? If things had fallen, if Quansah had played the whole game, and if Young hadn't got the red card, I would have been going Son to Foden. And then I've been, a lot worse off. So you can call it luck, I guess, there, if you want to.
Where's that toast that I made earlier? Let's go to the fridge.
Marmite on it?
Video.
Not jam, surely. Yeah, no, I will absolutely take that, and I'm absolutely delighted with that, obviously. Let's look at the great and the good and where that puts us there. Let's just zoom in a bit. And look at that. It's like the old days, top of the great and the good. There we go.
Andy's joining us in the top half of the table.
Yeah, it's good, isn't it? For BlackBox, we're doing well, all in the top half. So, Andy came in with an 86 game week. He's 715,000 in the world. So we're all in the top million. And we, that's, as far as I can remember, I don't think we've had a start like that before. So it's just whether we can build on it from here, isn't it?
Yeah, I don't think, certainly not in the last 4 years have I been inside the top million after, because we normally do our end of season, debrief, and we say, if you're not in the top million after game week 3, then you ain't going to win FPL. That's the normal mantra we come to, but we could both win FPL. That's the optimism that I'm going for.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's it's very, very unlikely, but when you start in the top million, it's a possibility. I think we looked a few seasons back that it's not very often the winner is outside of the top million by game week 3 or 4. They normally have a strong start. It's always a common theme that we find. So getting a good start is a great foundation, and we'll see how we go from there. But I mean, there's not big ranks here. There's no one who is like miles away. Obviously, we go down. Fabio Borges probably had a bad start, but then it's around 3 million, which isn't a bad. And that's the kind of start that I've been used to getting, is around 3 million out of the 8 or 10 million managers, and that's still a decent start. So I think with Haaland's hat-trick and so many captains in the league here, as we saw, I mean, there's only, 3 of us didn't have Haaland. Then, everyone got a fairly decent start after the first 2 game weeks. So it's on. Feels good, doesn't it, to get it going again?
Absolutely. I mean, you look at your rank, 245k, 163 points. And we've got Marku at the bottom. He's on 120 at 5.3 million. So there's 43 points between 200k and 5.3 million. So, I mean, 40 points is one good game week. So, it's if you have had a bad game week, if obviously Seb's there with like 56, that's one of the lowest scores I've seen. But if you're in around the 50s or something like that, and you feel like your season's over, don't worry, loads of time to pull it back.
Yeah, we've been on the end of bad game weeks and returned from it, and that it could be just a Haaland hat trick at West Ham, and then all those managers
I hope so.
Catch me and the others up. No, I really don't. Well, let's start looking at some data. It's good to have this back. Let's just we're zoomed in on that. So this is the team data defense, and what I've got in the final column is the difficulty of the fixtures they've had so far. So just the 2 games, obviously. And it's interesting to see, Ipswich have had the hardest start, and there they are, the bottom of XG conceded non-penalty per 90 of 2.61. I guess what's interesting straight away, particularly when we look at the attacking data after this, is Liverpool on top. Now, we talked about Slot perhaps being having a system which Liverpool take fewer risks and being a bit more secure. Yes, they've had easy fixtures, Ipswich and Brentford, one of the easiest first couple. Yes, it's very early days and you can't put too much on the data, but from what I've seen, and I've watched both Liverpool games now, they do look a little bit more secure. Is that your take as well, Az?
Yeah, for sure. I've been impressed with them defensively. Obviously, they had the thing with Quansah, which we both said last week. I'm not completely sure how well he handled it. I saw some comments from afterwards saying he was fine, and Liverpool fans don't seem to have much of a problem with it. In fact, some people saying they quite like the fact he's a bit more authoritarian with things, whereas Klopp would, be maybe a bit too pally with some of the players. So I don't know the ins and outs of the club. I still don't really know about that, but yeah, he was injured anyway. Also, they say, so it doesn't really matter. And then we had the thing with Trent, didn't we? This weekend with the substitution of Trent on the bench, looking a bit annoyed. Slot goes up to him, says something. Trent didn't look impressed as well. So I kind of feel like while things are going well, he's not really getting away with it, but he can get away with these kind of things. A bit of disgruntled players, but they're winning, picking up points. What happens if they start going through a bit of a run where things maybe turn a little bit? Do the players start turning a bit on him? I don't know, pure speculation. But for now, I think things are good. The attack is obviously clicking. It was a great breakaway goal for Diaz. Defence looks very solid. Manchester United should be a walk in the park. Sorry, United fans. Well, it never is really. You never really know. But I'd expect Liverpool to win that game and push on from there. But yeah, all things good on Merseyside at the moment.
Yeah, so 7.5 chances conceded per 90 so far. Obviously, just the 2 games, very small sample. I'll keep saying that all throughout the show tonight, because obviously we can get criticised for why are they looking at data? It means nothing. It's just got some interesting trends in it that are worth monitoring and tracking. If you're getting under 10 chances per 90, which Liverpool, City, Forest, and Spurs are, then you're doing well. I mean, that's the signs of a strong defence. So we'll see if that continues. I'm surprised about Forest. I think really that is on the basis of playing Southampton, who managed just 4 shots and 0.14 XG on Saturday against us, which is a good sign for the Forest defence. Brighton, you surprised at them? Because they're in 5th here on 0.94. Again, if you're under 1 XG conceded per 90, your defence looks strong. Do you think Brighton will be more secure under Hurtsula?
Yeah, I think so. I think the worry was that we would get undone by long balls again, and I think we kind of did at the start of that Everton match, but then kind of found our feet a little bit. I was really impressed with us against Manchester United. We're really playing as a team. My dad goes on about playing as a team, transitions, pushing up, dropping back, and it hurts us. Definitely instilled that in the team already. You can see it, and you would think with Kadioglu coming in, that's going to potentially make us even better. I think he comes into the right side probably and displaces Veltman. I've been wrong before, probably end up on loan with me saying that. But
I was going to say, when you're talking about Brighton, we take it with a slight pinch of salt, don't we?
Yeah, I mean, or basically, I think he displaces Veltman, so it either means Hinchwood would going over to the right where he played for us last season, and Kadioglu coming on the left where I think he's a more natural left back, or maybe Hinchwood carries on the left and Kadioglu plays on the right. But that feels like maybe it's switching the positions a bit. I think Veltman drops out anyway. But yeah, I've been really impressed. And Forest, you mentioned Forest, but last year Forest were right at the top of the defensive numbers, weren't they? It's just set pieces, and you haven't conceded a set piece goal yet, I don't think.
Not after 2 games, no.
That's good.
And we haven't looked too shaky from them yet. I mean, Milinkovic made his Premier League debut on Saturday at Southampton and was very impressive and should have scored, and he's gone right to the top of the XG numbers for defenders. But he was excellent at the back, marshalling, and him and Murillo should be pretty formidable. And we've just signed Moreno at left back as well. So our defence looks good. I'm still worried about the keeper. So, we'll see if we get anybody in the next 24 hours or so. Just others to pick out here. Newcastle, I mentioned them earlier. They're down in 19th after 2 games. Why it's interesting is because their start, 0.49 difficulty, is as easy as Forest, but they're right at the bottom, having conceded 2.02 XG conceded per 9 non-penalty per 90. Obviously, the 10 men against Southampton didn't help. But then I watched the Bournemouth game and they were pretty dire for long periods there as well. So far, the data backs up what we've seen with the eye test. I think they've struggled defensively. And when we look at the attacking data in the moment, we'll see it's similar there. So that's what I've picked out here. I don't think there's anything too much we can take elsewhere, though, because obviously just 2 games gone. Any thoughts on the Newcastle defence so far? I mean, I was looking at maybe Hall or Livramento. I'm glad I didn't, though.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the red cards. Obviously, you're going to judge them off the back of that, but also looking at Livramento playing and Hall playing, and then Hall dropping out, and Kelly coming in, and Byrne playing in similarly different positions. There's been quite a lot of, I don't know, change around there. I was expecting Newcastle to. I'm still expecting Newcastle to have a good season, but I mean, they need the transfer window to close, because what's going on with Trippier, for example? He's club captain. He started tonight. He said he wants to move. Essentially, is he going to go? Is he not going to go? When you've got such a key player like that making noises that they want to move, it's the same with Gahey at Palace. Like their head just aren't in the right place. So. And there's such a key part of that defence. And
he captained Palace last night, didn't he? These are players who have great influence in dressing rooms, and there's a lot of uncertainty around them. So, we need both of those cleared up in the next 24 hours at Newcastle, don't we?
And I don't think you're going to be investing in Newcastle now, are you? I mean, it's Spurs, it's 2 away games, then it's Man City. I don't know. I mean, Lewis Hall owners are going to be annoyed that he's now a risk, because he started the first game, he got booked and didn't have a great game, and then immediately out, and that was always the risk with him. Livramento's maybe the one to go for, but again, you're still going to be a bit worried about Trippier coming in. So where do you invest? Maybe in Pope in goal, but I think you'd pay 5 million to get Martinez because the fixtures are better. So a bit of a no-go in defence for me at the moment.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, Spurs, Wolves, Fulham, and then City. I can see them conceding all those games.
Yeah.
I think they don't travel well. So even Wolves and Fulham might on paper look like fairly moderate difficulty games, but I think they concede. Both those teams can score goals. Both those teams have got a lot in attack. And Spurs, I think, will definitely score. And probably, I do think Spurs will have a better day of it this time. They've suffered at the hands of Newcastle at St James's Park in recent seasons, but I think this season could be different. Let's look at attacking data. And while we're on Newcastle, it's the same there. Look, 0.49 the fixture difficulty, as we said. They're down in 16th for XG non-penalty per 90, 0.98. So amongst the strugglers there, and I'm surrounded by teams who have had much more difficult start in terms of fixtures, like Brentford, like Everton, like Ipswich. So considering the ease of those 2 fixtures, obviously the 10 men went against them. So, we'll have to see. But I'm just going off the back of the Bournemouth performance and what I've seen so far tonight. They're the team that have kind of surprised me, that they've stalled a little bit. And that is a concern with Isak, right?
Yeah, I mean, you look at Newcastle's attacking options and their squad depth isn't that impressive. I mean, they had to sell Minte to us, for example, to comply with these financial fair play rules. Obviously, having to play Murphy on the right. A lot of people are saying it's going to be Barnes and Gordon playing on the right, unless they sell Almiron. The only way they seem to be able to buy a new right wing was if they sell Almiron before. You look at their other pictures, I mean, you look at Murphy, you look at Willock, Fraser's still there, for example. They've got no alternative striker to Isak, with Wilson injured. There's just Osula, I think his name is.
Came from Sheffield United. Yeah, he's very raw. Yeah,
he's played a couple of games in the league. So I don't know. There's not a lot going for them in terms of that. I mean, it makes when you have got an Isak who is going to kick on and start scoring goals at some point. You have got Gordon. It doesn't make those 2 good options, because I mean, I was sure Gordon was going to go off before his goal, because he looked knackered. He wasn't playing well. There were 4 subs, I think, 3 or 4 subs lining up to come on. I was like, that's Gordon coming off. But obviously Howe just feels like he can't sub him. Did sub Isak, interestingly enough. But yeah, I don't know. I'm giving Gordon another week. and then probably moving him on before 2 away games. But it was a welcome 10 points for me. That I'll take it all day long.
Yeah, I think the Spurs game is crucial for those holding Isak and Gordon, and I'm amongst them. Watkins is obviously a player who's coming into the radar now with Villa's fixtures. I'll bring the ticker up again there just to go over those. I mean, Villa go into a run now, Leicester, Everton, Wolves, Ipswich, the next 4, which is now standing run. I mean, those, you've got to look at it and think those defences, all 4 of them are going to be giving Watkins. I mean, he's had a couple of very good chances against Arsenal already, but
and Man U in 7 as well, right?
Yeah, exactly. So you've got to think Watkins profits over that run of 4, and he probably should, I would say, outscore Isak in that run, given how Newcastle have travelled, and Isak is certainly a lot stronger at home. But the 2 home games that Isak's got in that period are against Spurs and City, so far more difficult than what Watkins faces. So you can see that move being on the cards for a lot of people, and that's one of the reasons why I've made the move I've made this week. So I've got the money to do Isak to Watkins possibly soon. Are you looking at that as well as an Isak?
Yeah, for sure. We'll talk about transfers and things later, but I'm pretty certain gonna save my transfer this week. I've already got a bit of a benching headache, so then I can bring in a player that I want in Matoma and use that money to do Isak to Watkins. I think we're hoping that Watkins can get through this week without going too big. And do you know what? If he's getting chances and missing them, no problem with that at all. You miss as many chances against Leicester as you want. Ollie, the more chances you miss, the better, because I know you're getting into good positions. Save them all for Everton at home in Game Week 4 after the international break, when you've had a bit of a rest. It's been quite a tiring few months for you. But yeah, he's almost certainly come. Everton at home, the way Everton are at the moment. Yeah, it's. I mean, he's a captain option, isn't he? In that,
he is, and I mean, Villa turn up here in the attacking data in 8th, 1.65, which isn't it's mid-table, but look at the difficulty of their fixtures. They've had ranked 4th or 5th for the difficulty of the first 2 games. Obviously playing West Ham away and Arsenal at home, not an easy start, and yet they've turned up in the top 10 still, which is good sign, because over the run that they've got, you'd expect Villa in a few game weeks' time to be 2nd or 3rd in this table and stay there for the duration of that good run. So we've got to anticipate that. I mean, for me, I'm all about playing the fixtures early in the season, because we don't have, although we're looking at data tonight, we can't rely on it. It's a small sample. So all that we really can go on is the fixture difficulty. And I'm all about playing that and trying to target the promoted teams, obviously, but any of the kind of bottom 6 candidates. And that, for me, means I've got to get on Villa for this run.
Yeah, I mean, there's not a lot in it between Watkins and Isak. I think if they'd both started the season with similar fixtures, I think it would have been a lot closer between them, in terms of where we go. But obviously, Isak had Southampton at home first week. I think you would have been a very brave FPL manager to not have gone with Isak. And you look at the Elite 64 and the Analytics 64. I think there's like 3 managers that didn't go with Isak, and it's typical that he's the one that then. After a few weeks is one word, because I thought he could potentially be a season hold. If he'd started off these two games a week strong, obviously on penalties, no real threat from Wilson. I thought, okay, that's a good price for him. Was he 8.5? There wouldn't be any real reason to take him out, but it's only 2 game weeks in, and now we're thinking of shipping him, someone that we thought would be good. But the fact he's so highly owned and the fact so many people are going to stick with him does present an opportunity to try and get ahead.
Yeah, well, we're going to look at candidates to replace Isak and Solanke, if you've got either of them or both, later in the show when we start looking at data. But we're going to start looking at goalkeepers first of all. I think what I want to pick out here, I mean, we don't often talk about keepers, and again, 2 weeks of data, not a lot to go on. But already, while we don't normally want to spend 5 or even 5 million on a keeper, so far it's looking like that was the way to go. Sitting here with Raya in my squad, perhaps I'm biased, but you've got to say that Alisson and Raya have turned out to have a very strong start.
Oh, it's the bonus that's been the killer. 2, was it 3 bonus in the last game? And 1 in the one before, something like that. But so and the saves as well.
Raya's got 4 bonus points. So it says here bonus per clean sheet. It's 2 per clean sheet. So now we didn't see that last season. When he got a clean sheet, him and even the Arsenal defence didn't get bonus, but he has come through with an average of 2 points per clean sheet so far.
I mean, they've been lucky. They've been lucky to keep 2 clean sheets. I still maintain Wolves should have scored in that first game. Sarabia, should hang his head in shame at missing that chance. And so should Watkins with 2 unbelievable chances in that game. So, I think it's a different story. It's all ifs and buts, and if my mum had wheels, she'd be a bike and all that. But if they score those 2 games, and you're looking at Reyes suddenly, and you're thinking, okay, it's Brighton next, and then Spurs, you're paying 5-5. I think suddenly we're getting a bit twitchy feet, but we're not. And actually, this feels like this is the kind of low point maybe for Arsenal's defence. The 2 clean sheets is the low point, but I can only see them getting better because Marino's coming in, who I think won the most challenges or something across Europe, all of Europe's leagues last year, something like that. I remember when he was at Newcastle and not really thinking that much of him, and obviously went away and is now a Euros winner and in Arsenal. And yeah, I just look at that team. I think you've got so much strength in depth, particularly in defence, a great midfield. The returns are going to come, and I think Ray is probably going to be 5-6, 5-7 in a couple of weeks. And I think if you got on him early, that's definitely a decision you got right. I wish I had him, but if I had him, I would also have Nkunku right now, and I'm glad I don't have Nkunku, so I'm not going to moan too much.
Yeah, I mean, just look at let's look at the long ticker actually, and look at Arsenal's run that they've got. So in terms of up to game week 13, they're right down the bottom in terms of fixture difficulty, because over this run they've got, and this is a run of 10 game weeks. They've got Spurs, Man City, Liverpool, Newcastle away, and Chelsea away. So 5 of the game weeks that they've got in this run are difficult out of the 11. But the thing is about Arsenal is I look at wherever they go, and obviously at home to Brighton, away at Spurs, and away at City, they are capable of getting a shutout in any game, because that is the way they play. They're so well drilled, and they are an efficient results machine these days, with the emphasis on security at the back. I don't think they're going to get clean sheets at Spurs and City, but they're the only team I think I would even entertain the idea that they could.
Well, the thing is, where do you go? Like, I wanted to pay 4-5 for a goalkeeper, so I picked Henderson, thinking they had a good run of fixtures, and the fixtures aren't too bad. The next 4: Chelsea, Leicester, Man United, Everton. And particularly that Leicester and Everton game, there might be 1 clean sheet in there, maybe some save points from the others. I mean, a lot of people have got Flecken. Okay, it's Southampton next, but no clean sheets in the first 2 games. It's Man City away in game week 4, and then Tottenham away in 5. A better run from 6 though for Flecken. West Ham, Wolves at home, Man United, Ipswich.
It's a tremendous run for Brentford.
Yeah. So that is, if you are wildcarding around that time, then I think Flecken becomes the obvious 4-5 keeper if you don't want to pay the extra for Raya. But I mean, Raya from game week 6 has got Leicester at home, Southampton at home, Bournemouth away. I mean, that could conceivably be 3 clean sheets. And if you don't have an Arsenal defender, that's going to hurt. Even if they've got 2 clean sheets across those 3, you're going to be struggling. So an Arsenal player an Arsenal defender has to come in for me in game week 6. It just depends whether it is a goalkeeper move or in defence.
Yeah, and Alisson's in second at the moment in the keeper table. We'll go back to it in a minute, but just looking at Liverpool's fixtures, United this weekend obviously is a test. I would expect United to score there, but then Liverpool go on that run, which we knew Liverpool had, and we knew that we'd have to start looking at Liverpool in attack and defence for this period, which is Forest, Bournemouth, Wolves, and Palace. And you've got to think, there's possibly 3 or 4 clean sheets there.
Yeah,
I mean, I would say at least 3. I would say. I mean, so yeah, those 2 keepers right at the top at the moment of our table, Raya and Alisson, probably are going to, certainly I see Alisson staying up there for a good few weeks because of the run of fixtures Liverpool have got. Maybe Raya will slip down and some of the 4-5s can keep catching up. But if you look at the 4-5s, you've got Sells, who I still don't think he's secure in goal for Forest. He's next in terms of points per 90 of 4.5. Then you've got Steele. Well, Verbruggen's coming back. Talk to me about that. Surely Verbruggen, who played in midweek, is going to be first choice, right?
Yeah, I mean, he's back. He's back, and he's a Belgian international goalkeeper. So he's going to replace Steele. I imagine he replaces him straight away in the team. I think he's played 90 minutes. He looked comfortable. We've got a clean sheet. Looked good. Steele's done all right, I think, the first few games. But Verbruggen is the next level. He's better with his feet. He's a better goalkeeper all rounds. And Steele is a very capable backup. But I imagine Verbruggen comes straight back in. And a good pick again at 4-5, a good pick. It's just Brighton's fixtures again. We've got 2 good home games coming up in 4 and 5, and then it's a bit of a rough sea of fixtures.
I think then you get into the realms of Areola and Flecken, and I definitely think Flecken with the run from game week 6 is the one.
Bruggen is of course Dutch, not Belgian. Apologies.
Yes, I was going to say Sells is the Belgian keeper.
My Dutch friend will be screaming at me about that.
But I when I started this season, I think you remember when we did the post-mortem of last season, the goalkeeper position was one that I found incredibly frustrating last season because I didn't go to Raya. Wish I had done, and I moved around the 4-5s and got off Pickford at the wrong time, got off Areola at the wrong time. So that was behind my decision to just go with Raya and hope for the best. But it has turned out a lot better than I expected.
I'm in the same bloody boat again that I was last year.
You are, yeah.
I got through them all last year. You know, I had Areola, I had Sanchez for 1 week, then he got injured. I had Martinez, who didn't do anything. The best decision I made last season, and there wasn't many, was getting Raya in on the wild card. And it annoys me a bit that I haven't started with him again this week because I think he's a great pick. But I'm sure there will be a 4-5 option that emerges at some point. And at the moment, my squad structure's pretty good, and I can't really complain too much because finding the extra million for a goalkeeper is tough. And like I said, if I'd gone for the 6-5 mid in Nkunku and Raya, I think I'd be like 3 points better off. But I'd be having issues with Nkunku, which we're going to talk about in a bit. So I think if I could go back, I'm not totally sure I would change around. Looking at the XG prevented, you've got Sanchez, who's minus 2.40, who will come under pressure from Jurgensen. And Pickford, 100 other goalkeepers they got in there.
Yeah, they've got about 7
as well.
Pickford at minus 2.10, and Everton had a terrible start. I mean, that's not on Pickford, I wouldn't have said. And Jose Sarr, who looks like
Son's goal was.
Yeah, it definitely was. Yeah, and Sarr, who looks like he's lost his place to Johnson, who signed today. So there is movement in this position. You've talked about Verbruggen. Johnson, I've just mentioned, is coming into Wolves, and I think he's at 4-4, so he's already taken a 0-1. So he could be a bargain for wildcarders if they're looking for staying in that bracket. And then there's Ramsdale, who's moved to Southampton today by the looks of it.
Oh, has he?
4-5. Yeah. So I'd be interested to see how he does there, because Ramsdale in a side that's conceded shots could do well for save points and bonus.
Yeah, but then I guess we've got the same thing we came back to in pre-season, where the save points aren't enough to get the bonus anymore, and they need to be keeping the clean sheet. So, what you want is a 4-5 million defender playing in a team that keeps clean sheets. That's the main thing. And at the moment, it doesn't really feel like there is that. I mean, Pickford was so effective at grinding out the 1-0s last season, but there's no evidence that's going to happen this time out. It's Forest that I like the look of at 4-5. And I mean, if the transfer window closes, do you think Sells remains number one if there's no goalkeeper?
Yeah, I do, but I mean, I think that is a potential weakness for Oslo. I don't think he's good enough. I think if I was ranking the Premier League keepers, he'd be in the bottom 5, and that's not what we want. We want a keeper who's going to get us mid-table. So I do worry about Sells being the weakness now that we're looking stronger at the back. If we can protect him, and we did a good job at protecting him last season, and when we had Turner. But it was errors and set pieces. So hopefully if we can rule them out, we'll be okay. So yeah, I agree. I mean, I think that Sells could be an option, but we'll see if Forest brings somebody in. I wouldn't move yet for Sells, put it that way, because knowing Forest, we've probably got 1 or 2 things up our sleeve at the deadline.
Kepa at Bournemouth?
Yeah, possibly. Yeah. I mean, he looks like he's moved in the last 24 hours. He's going to get the shirt. And Bournemouth's fixtures, Bournemouth last season were okay defensively. They're a side, though, who, if you look at the long ticker, they don't really have a sustained run of good fixtures. They're a bit like Brighton. They go Everton, Chelsea, then it's Liverpool, Southampton, Leicester, then it's Arsenal and Villa, then City. So they've got a horrible run between 8 and 10. Then they go Brentford, Brighton, Wolves. So they don't have a burst of 4 or 5 fixtures where you think, right, that's going to be a run of clean sheets. But maybe Kepa for save points is potentially where you go. Yeah.
Because I think the key thing is getting the keeper into your wild card. And then after that, you just keep them, right? It doesn't matter if they've got 3 or 4 rough games, because it's just the fixture list up until Christmas, unless you're planning on making goalkeeper transfers, which none of us like to do. So I think it's more important to get that goalkeeper right for these 5-6 weeks before the wildcards are played. I know there's already some there's always some wildcards being played now, and it's interesting to know what people are doing. I mean, I imagine 90% of people wildcarding now will be on Raya. I can't really. It's a risk, isn't it?
If you were wildcarding going into game week 4, you would just go Raya, would you?
I think you have to, don't you? Because I think you can if you wait a bit and wait till game week 5 or 6, then you can see if there's a 4-5 option emerging. Maybe Brentford are looking decent. Maybe Kepa's coming in and is looking quite strong. And you think the clean sheets and saves are going to be there. But we don't have that data at the moment. So you pick the safest option. And he hasn't gone up in price yet. So I think if you're on a wild card, Raya's an easy choice.
It's interesting because I ran a few solves on review, and I've got a team that I put in Plan FBL that review threw out at me. And it didn't go Raya. It went Gabriel, and it actually went Ederson in goal. So it did go 5-5, but it went for the City keeper instead. Presumably, Ederson doesn't go before the window now. So
our slippers about Ederson, and then
I mean, we don't want to go there, do we?
I don't think so. No, I mean, we're expecting Gavardio, aren't we, to become an option for us at some point. I mean, that's the trouble with. I mean, that is the only trouble with. Raya, isn't it? I mean, there could be a defender that emerges, like if you do want to get on a Gabriel or a White, with Saka as well, and then obviously Havertz up top. It does block you out of those three, but I think Raya in the defense is kind of okay. Whereas with City, you've got Gavardio, Foden, and Haaland, who all look really strong. So unless you're pretty much guaranteed that you're not going to go with one of those, then I wouldn't be picking Ederson. And I guess the same with Alisson, right? You've got Trent, Jota, Salah as the 3, but then I guess there's not really anyone else. I mean, Szoboszlai maybe at 6'5", like we talked about. Maybe Robertson.
Wow.
I know he's.
We're going to look at Diaz in a minute as well, and you mentioned Vardio. We're going to look at Vardio as well. I've got some heat maps to show on both those players, so some goodness to investigate there. Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, this is it. If you're comfortable with Alisson or Raya blocking the third slot, then you can go there. I'm okay with that. I think that I can forego an Arsenal defender and just go with Raya. The reason why I say that is I think that there are defenders with some attacking potential and some 4-5 defenders that I've got more faith in than the 4-5 keepers. And I don't know why, but I just find it more comfortable to swap 4-5 defenders with transfers than I would a 4-5 keeper.
Yeah.
Doesn't make sense, does it? But you do, don't you? You just think, well, because I've just gone Quansah to Lewis. Now, I wouldn't make a goalkeeper transfer in game week 2 normally. And if I did, I'd be like fretting about it. But I made no odds about going Quansah to Lewis because it's 2 4-5 defenders. So for some reason, it feels okay doing that, but it doesn't feel okay swapping 4-5 keepers.
You've got a bit of a safety blanket, haven't you, with defenders? Because you've got you've got bench options and things. And I guess you could maybe get a lucky attacking return or something. If Lewis could score that chance that he had, whereas. With a goalkeeper, once you lose the clean sheet, you're like, that's it. That's gone. I'm not going to get that. So yeah, it is a little bit different. And that if a 4-5 defender doesn't work, like Lewis, you could just stick on your bench if you really wanted to. He's only 4-5 and bring someone else in. Whereas with a goalkeeper, if you get it wrong, you then need to make another transfer to correct it, and so on and so forth.
Good. I mean, Dominic Jarvis makes a good point here. I'm not paying 5-5 for keeper, least important player in the side. You say that, but like. Raya is now, the 5th or 6th highest scoring player in the game already? And last season, as we said, when we looked at the difference between our teams and we compared it to the FPL winner, one of the key differences was he got the keepers right and beat us by about 50, 60 points. So you can say it's one of the least important positions in the side, but before if you're not careful, you notice that you're falling behind by just having these succession of 4-5s that don't deliver versus a 5 or a 5-5. That has got a steady stream of clean sheets. So that is traditionally the view, Dominic. I agree with you, but I'm beginning to think maybe we need to realign that if we're in a world where Alisson and Raya are going to get 15 to 20 clean sheets, which I think they could, then and none of the 4-5s perform, which could be a possibility, then suddenly it isn't a position we can take too lightly. I think we need to be prepared to change our opinion on that.
I mean, if you were offered 150 points for any position at 5-5, you'd take it over the season. And actually, this is the one where, in other positions, obviously you can move them around and fluctuate and things. Whereas the goalkeeper, you don't want to do that. Ideally, you want to pick a goalkeeper in game week 1 and just leave it for 38 weeks. And if you've got a goalkeeper at 5-5 who's going to get you 150 points, which I think he was just under that last season, but obviously missed the first few games, then you're laughing, aren't you? Because you just set and forget. You do not have to worry about that position again. Whereas at 4-5, you've got risks that you're going to have to move them and move them round. And, they could be coming in at 100, 110 points. And actually that million would have been spent on 40 or 50 extra points, which would have been worth it.
Yeah, I mean, if Raya and Allison keep getting bonus, which I didn't expect, then it gets even bigger. We'll have to see. But I think we need to be prepared to, rethink that opinion about the four. Because I went 4-5s last season and it hurt. So we'll see. Defenders.
Ward and Everson.
2-4s. Do you remember that? You did do that for a period, wasn't it? Was it Ward and who else? Who was it? Everson, Ward, yeah. Classic combination.
My word. That was a dark.
It was dark, yeah. Defenders, right. One name right at the top, Trent. And I want to talk about Trent and Robertson in particular. This double act a few seasons back was incredibly effective, of course. And we talked about the Liverpool defence. When you look at the data so far, Trent is miles ahead, XGI non-penalty per 90, 1.68. The next defender down, 0.99, Milinkovic. Romero, 0.95. So Trent miles ahead so far. Very early days, of course. But I'm going to look at Trent in a bit more detail in a minute. Robertson also is there, low in fourth, 0.62. I'm liking what I'm seeing. And I actually think when we talk about, where you go with your 3 Liverpool slots, I wouldn't rule out doubling up on the defence if the solidity continues and Robertson continues to get forward like he has been. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, if you remember the end of my season last year, when I finished 450k, my season would have been a lot worse if I hadn't got Robertson in for the last 4 weeks, because I caught 2 of his goals, 2 of his 3 goals he scored at the end of last season. He scored no goals the year before that at all. So, it was interesting that, suddenly towards the end, he carried on, and it looks like his positioning and things looks kind of identical to how he finished last season, very, very strongly. So I do like it at 6 million though. I mean, would I put him over Gvardiol, Saliba, and pair him with Trent? I don't know. I don't know if I do know I wouldn't.
For me, it's Porro or Robertson for me. I mean, Porro's up here in 6 already, 0.57. I'm going to talk about Gvardiol in detail in a minute. He's right down in 43rd, 0.09, and I'm going to tell you why I think that is in a bit. But I think the comparison is Robertson or Porro. I mean, if you go Raya in goal, you don't need to have a 6 million Arsenal defender necessarily. But I'm seeing Robertson in a lot of wildcards, put it that way. And a lot of people are looking at him instead of Trent to save the million. Now, what do you think of that? I'm not so sure there.
I don't believe in the term essential. You've shown that you can do it without Haaland and all that, but why wouldn't you pick Trent at 7 million? He's playing for a team that we think is going to be a better defence. The fixtures are good. His attacking numbers here are like better than an elite striker, although obviously it's only 2 game weeks and all that. But you watch him and you think he's putting balls in, he's getting into good positions, playing for a good defence. He's 7 million. I just wouldn't take him out. I think he's so important. And I'm seeing people wildcarding this week because they're worried about Trent and not having him and no easy way to get him. And I kind of get it as well. I think he's the most important player to have going forward. I would, if I was wildcarding, I'd build a team around him.
Yeah, I mean, it is 2 weeks data, but this is Trent's season data going back, 7 seasons now, which is crazy. And if you look at his chances created per 90, big chance created per 90, touch in the box per 90, XGI non-penalty per 90, so far over the 2 games, he is outstripping any of his previous averages. It is only 2 games, but chance created per 90 of 4.26. His previous best there was 2.68 or 2.84 a couple of seasons back. So he's significantly outstripping that. Now, it's only 2 weeks. It might not continue, but if he continues creating 3 to 4 chances per game, then we expect to see him improve on. If you look at the goal involvement at the bottom of this table, he's averaging around 15 to 20% goal involvement in Liverpool's goals. Liverpool score a lot of goals. If he creates 4 chances a game, he's going to be getting over 20%, isn't he? I mean, it's going to be a different animal then.
Yeah, and you look at the fixtures and think, I don't really know where this is going to end. I mean, Man United, Forest at home, Bournemouth at home, Wolves away, Palace, Chelsea. That takes you right up to game week 8. I mean, that is a great run for the attack. I'm sitting here without Salah, but if I didn't have Salah and I didn't have Trent, I'd be more worried about not having Trent.
I was going to ask you
over this run. So, I've got Jota and Trent. I'm happy with that. Salah's obviously outscored Jota. That's fine. I don't think he's outscored him by 5 million in that sense. So we'll see what happens over the next few weeks. But I would be, even if I had Robertson, I'd still be so worried about Trent. I just think you get him. I mean, if you look at the chat, I mean, it's very split. There's some people saying they think he's essential. Other people saying they don't think he is. RGA964 says I don't think he's essential. Josie Robinson says Palmer's more important to get. Well, I don't have him either. I'd still be prioritizing Trent. I think Peppermint says Trent should already be on 2 assists. Absolutely. I think actually his data's so good and he's actually not had the returns that he does. I mean, look at that Jota header, for example.
Yeah.
Should have been put away. And 06 Keely says 7 million, subbed off early twice. Bradley will get some games, might get rested around the Champions League. Really don't see the Trent appeal, not even tempted. Ooh, might come back to that in a few weeks.
Well, I mean, there's no player who is further ahead within his position than Trent. When you look at midfield or forwards, even Haaland in the forwards or Salah in the midfielders, there won't be a gap that big. Now, I'm not saying this gap will stay there, but it's something to track. I do believe the gap between him and the rest of the defenders will be big this season. I really do. Robertson might be getting close if he, and he is so far, maybe he can keep that up. But even that, at the moment, there's a gap there. So it depends what that gap is between a 7 million Trent and the next best, which is your Poros or your Gabriels or your Vardiols, right? If that gap is vast, 50, 60, 70 points, then the word essential starts coming into the vocabulary, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean the issue is like Javier says on the chat, Trent's attitude is concerning. We mentioned it earlier. He's kind of a bit of a strop on the bench and things, and we've already seen that Slot is a bit of a disciplinarian, we think. So I'm not saying that continues into the next game, but if that becomes a bit of a thing going forward, then maybe he does say, right, okay, Bradley's getting this game now. You're gonna have to learn your place and all that. But again, just purely speculation. I don't think you can pick. You can't avoid a player like Trent just because you think his attitude might be an issue. I mean, the one thing is though, Trent has got 1 year left on his contract. We spoke about this in pre-season. Him, Van Dijk, and Salah, all with 1 year. Him sitting, shaking his head on the bench, looking really annoyed, isn't going to fill Liverpool fans with a lot of optimism that he's going to sign before the start, before the transfer window closes. And if it gets to January and he still doesn't sign a new contract, then he might have his head in Madrid.
I mean, Trent is coming off in 75 minutes and he's not getting obviously any attacking returns in that final crucial 20 minutes. I get it. But then also he could lock in a clean sheet, couldn't he? And, so it could work either way. I'm not too concerned by that yet. If it continues, it's interesting. It does look as though Slot wants to rest his fullbacks with the last 15, 20 minutes. He seems to be doing that with both Robertson and Trent. I think he's done it in both games. I want to talk about Rico Lewis and Vardiol. Vardiol's down there in 0.09. Rico Lewis is 5th on 0.60, boosted by that ridiculous chance that he missed. I want to look at Vardiol though, because he's playing on the left, and last season he played left back and pushed forward in a very advanced role, was almost playing as part of the front three for periods. It's changed this season so far because Lewis has been on the right and he's the one inverting. I wanted to look at Vardiol's heat map here. So the first heat map is the heat map from 24-25 is what we're seeing this season. And you can see there that, the bulk of his touches are just after the halfway line, not quite in the final third. And then you look back to last season, and this is basically the 2 games from this season and then his last 2 matches of last season. So this is only a 2-match sample, both of this season and a 2-match sample at the end of last season. So you can see where his touches were very, very different last season in terms of they were more forward, he was higher up, and he was coming into central areas. Now, we haven't seen that yet. And the reason why we haven't seen that yet is because of Lewis. Because if you look at Lewis, and he's the first heat map here, you can see that he is roughly in the same position in terms of touches, but he has had quite a few touches in the penalty area, in the final third, and also crucially in central positions. So he's the one inverting, he's the one getting forward and almost playing a more attacking role. Vardiol having to be more disciplined. The question is that going to continue? And does that put us off Vardiol?
Well, I wouldn't be buying Vardiol at the moment, given this position and the lack of attacking threat. I think if you're paying 6 million for a City defender. And City have, we've got a few years of data to go on now, and City have always been right up there in terms of defensive numbers, but the clean sheets haven't always been easy to predict, and I feel like they are with Arsenal. I feel like they could just go on a run, and you get some attacking threat with Gabriel and Saliba, or pay the little bit extra and get White. Whereas if you're not really getting any attacking potential for a 6 million City defender, I think that's not great value. I just wonder about Luke. I mean, what happens when Walker comes back in the team? Does that mean that Gvardiol then reverts to how he was?
Yeah,
last season?
I would expect that. But the thing is, Lewis has been absolutely outstanding. He hasn't put a foot wrong, and he's been their best performer in several of the games already. And he, I watched Match of the Day Challenge, and I only saw the highlights, and he missed that chance. And I made a ridiculous remark. I said, that's the last time we'll see Lewis in a City shirt, because you know what Pep is like when you miss chances. And I thought he was going to go. He didn't. He stayed on to the 90th minute. That's the first thing. So they made a lot of subs, and Lewis didn't go off. And then you read the reports and you watch the game back, and Lewis was man of the match in a lot of people's eyes, even though Haaland got the hat-trick. He's getting a lot of attention, a lot of plaudits. How's Walker going to get back in? Because Walker can't do what that heat map shows there. Walker's nowhere near as effective in the final third, and he's certainly not as effective in the penalty area. So if it's working, does Pep change it?
Well, I don't know. is the short answer. I know that's a pretty sit on the fence answer. I wouldn't be buying Lewis. Like I said to you last week, I was surprised that you bought him, but he is someone that you can just bench if you need to. But there's always going to be that worry that Walker comes back in. He's a headache for me each week. You're always going to be worried about seeing him on the team sheet and whether he's going to play. But he has got great potential, and if he had scored that goal against Ipswich, he would be a massive bandwagon. At the moment, his ownership would be absolutely soaring. So he's still staying a bit under the radar.
He has gone up to 4.6, so he is getting traffic. I think when the Champions League kicks in, I see it that Walker's most likely to play the Champions League games. So I think it could actually work in the favour of Lewis, in that I see the games that Lewis is going to play over Walker being the ones where they come up against low block teams, which will be the weaker teams, and the teams most likely to get a clean sheet against. Whereas Walker will probably play in the tougher games. Now, this was my theory about Quanta and Kanate, and it went wrong there. So I'm basically buying into the same kind of theory, that there's going to be some form of rotation between these two defenders. We'll see. But I do think Lewis is worth the gamble. If I was wildcarding, I would go Lewis over Gvardiol for sure.
Would you? Yeah. Well, I think I probably would, but I probably wouldn't have either. If I was going to pick one, I think I probably would go for Lewis at the moment, and just hope that he can. He's that kind of spot maybe that you can just take a bit of a risk on and hope he plays. Because, like I said, I don't think there's if you're going to get Gvardiol, you're probably going to do Lewis to Gvardiol anyway, because you're not going to roll with Gvardiol and Lewis. And then there's only really Haaland and Foden that you'd consider. So it doesn't block you out of a potential another spot. So you can risk it. I don't know. I just think Walker is and has been such an important part of that team for so long, and for him just not to play just doesn't really seem right. I mean, especially when you look at the relationship he had with Foden last season, and how Foden was able to get into more central areas and do his best work and win Player of the Year because of the work Walker was doing on the right. So suddenly changing that tactic is absolutely something Pep could do, but there's definitely risk associated with it.
That's very valid as well, because Foden hasn't started the season yet. So maybe Lewis is getting ahead at the moment because he needs that attacking impetus that he brings. Yeah. Whereas when Foden is back, then that might be the signal for Walker to come in to give a bit more reassurance. But to be fair, Lewis is defending well as well. I think that it's good for now, and as long as you've got Lewis as your fourth, or even better, your fifth defender, then he's definitely worth a pump, because if he carries on, if he keeps the levels up, he's going to get 25 starts, I think. Maybe the Champions League is where we'll see Walker. So I definitely think he's worth a punt. And also at the moment, Gvardiol, because of the effect Lewis is having, you'd have to be cautious about that, as we showed in the heat maps. Let's look at midfielders.
Sorry, just really quick on it. Can he play the other side as well? Can he play on the left?
Lewis, I don't think so. I mean, he's very versatile. I mean, he could, I'm sure. I mean, he strikes me as a player who can play anywhere. I mean, I think That's why Pep loves him. You can play him in midfield, and he could probably do a job on the wing as well. He can play central midfield. He's just and it won't be long before he's breaking into the internationals as well. Like, he's going to be probably Carsley's squad, you would expect. So I think that I think he's going to be. We talked about who are the breakthrough players this season. We didn't really consider Lewis. We are now. I thought it was going to be Oscar Bob. It's not Oscar Bob because of the injury. It probably would have been, but instead of Oscar Bob, I think it's looking odds on that Lewis is going to probably come out of the season with, like I say, 20 plus starts, which we wouldn't have said a few months back.
We are a bit cursed, aren't we? I just remembered you with Bob and Quansa, me with Barco. God, who's next?
Well, I've just wrecked Lewis, haven't I? That's what I've done.
No, yeah.
Right, midfielders. Big name at the top, Bruno Fernandes. He was incredibly popular. Just crept into a lot of teams, didn't he, in the last few days? He has had 2.02 XGI non-penalty per 90 with 0 returns so far. I mean, it's bad luck, isn't it? Because a lot of it came in that first game we saw against Fulham, where Leno kept him out, and then he had the assist for Garnacho, which was tapped in by Zerki on the line and then disallowed. So, but a lot of movement off Bruno. He's suffering a price drop, I think, if he hasn't already. I'm not seeing him in wildcards now, so it looks like people are moving away from him.
No, and I don't really understand the demand for him at the start. And okay, it could be very different if he got a couple of attacking returns, but Manchester United have made a lot of signings. Ten Hag himself came out and said they kind of weren't really ready. Fulham was always going to be quite a tough game, I think, because they were so impressive last season. And I think Brighton away was always going to be a tough game as well, given the record we have of them, the money we've spent, all the euphoria surrounding the club. So I just never got that at that price for him. But he should have at least one attacking return. So it's hard. Same with Eze as well, right? Eze is also incredibly popular. Yeah. He's 13th on the list. Extra penalty of 1.08, which, although there's quite a few players above 1, that's massive. Like that is massive underlying numbers. Obviously, he won't continue to post throughout the season. So you are unlucky if you went with one of them, or even if you went with both of them. But I still think there was much more risk going with Bruno than there was Eze, because Palace finished so strongly at the end of last season.
I wonder whether it was talk of the false 9 was driving people that way as well. And obviously we know what we're getting. He's royalty, isn't he? He's FPL royalty. He's probably his most prolific output is behind him, but he's still got the penalties and he's still got the minutes. Although he has been subbed in both games now. So the whole idea that he's a 90-minute player.
Is he royalty? Would I describe Bruno Fernandes as royalty?
Well, in one season, I remember we did a show where we said he was a stronger asset at that point than Salah.
Yeah, I mean, he got 244 points that season, but it's been 150, 160-ish points for 3 seasons now, which, as that much of a talisman for the club, a big club as well, I don't really think that's good enough. He should be hitting 200 points every year.
Yeah, no, I get it. I think his legacy is there in terms of his FPL output. Eze, you mentioned, you're absolutely right. I mean, of the two, it's no question for me you're holding Eze. And people are saying in chat, well, the AI is still suggesting Bruno. It's not. It's suggesting keep Eze. It's not. I mean, the wildcard teams that I've been seeing that the AI is spitting out don't include Bruno. They do include Eze. And the reason for that is Eze's numbers, of course, but also, he's got Chelsea away, not an easy game in Game Week 3. Then it's Leicester, Man United, Everton, Liverpool and Forest. So, 4 of the next 5 after Game Week 3 are very strong. That Leicester fixture, it's a bit like the Haaland fixture with Ipswich, isn't it? You're looking at that Leicester fixture and you're probably worried if you don't have Eze, because his numbers suggest that he's got a double-figure return coming, and that could well be it. Are you worried about not owning him?
No, not with Mateta, the mighty Mateta in my side.
They've got Nketiah now, so you're not worried about Mateta.
A little bit. I think Edouard's off though as well. 20 million to Ipswich. I'm seeing. So they haven't exactly got a lot of strikers available. The issue was that when we were watching match today, just how wide Mateta was having to drift to receive the ball. So it depends what Nketiah is being brought in for. Is he being brought in, to play as a 9? Does Mateta play just behind him? Do they play them both like together as strikers? I don't really know what the plan is for them. So yeah, it's I'd rather they weren't signing Nketiah than it was just Mateta there. But he's got great work rate, Nketiah, so hopefully it can lead to a few goals. I just have to clarify, by the way, FPL royalty, I was saying for Fernandes. He's one of the Premier League royalty greats.
Yes.
He's an unbelievable
Yes.
player, and
Yes.
United have had struggles, for many seasons now, but you can never fault his quality and what he brings to the team. I wouldn't do that, but FPL wise, I have expected more.
Fair enough. No, I think you're right in that respect. The last few seasons he has dropped off, and his days of being a heavy hitter, so to speak, are behind him, and the 8.5 price tag feels right in that respect.
Yeah.
So fair enough. Also up here, we're going to talk about Diaz in detail. Semenyo has been outstanding. He started the season tremendously. 1.93 XGI non-penalty per 90. He's had 8 touches in the box. He's had shots in the box per 90, 3.5. He wasn't someone that I necessarily was gravitating towards. When we looked at the 5.5 enablers, he was in our list, and we did talk about him pre-season. He's just started incredibly strongly, hasn't he? And I think that when we're looking at, Nkunku replacements, if you want to go down from the 6.5 where Nkunku is, then Semenyo's got to be in the thinking, I would say.
I like it. It's Everton next as well, given the problems they've had. And then I think it's Southampton at home a few weeks later. Chelsea and Liverpool around that, so it is a proper mixed bag. But if you can work that out with the rotation, around Smith Rowe, Rodgers, whoever, then I think he's a really strong asset. I picked him up on the draft league and was really, really happy with that. I mean, we haven't seen Ivanilson, is that his name?
Evanilson, yeah, he had his debut on Sunday.
Yeah, we haven't seen too much of him though, have we? Would he play about 65 minutes in that game or something?
Yeah,
like
he's okay. He looked. I mean, like he had 3 shots, 2 chances created. He did okay. Semenyo was definitely the threat. Though 7 shots in that game on Sunday.
Yeah, yeah. So maybe it is that even with him in the team, he's still a great option. But yeah, I do like it. And we talked about the 5.5s at the start. I think with Smith Rowe, Rodgers, with Semenyo as well, and another midfielder, West Ham, we're going to talk about in a bit. You can take a punt on him and know that you've got other places to move.
Yeah, no, absolutely. One of the things that we've done this year is we've got our own KPI tables, key performance indicator tables. And in that, what I did is I looked at players that have improved markedly in terms of touches in the box per 90 to get an idea whether there's any tactical changes. Any players are obviously getting more in the box than they did last season. And it surfaced Semenyo here. I think he's down mid-table here. So his touches in the box per 90 gone up by 2.31. He's right in the mid-table. But right at the top there is Souček. Now, Souček has had 8 shots in the box so far, more than any other midfielder. He scored at Palace, of course, got the first goal. All of his key performance indicators are up. His touches in the box up by 5.76, shots per 90 up by 2.96, shots in the box up by 3.09, XGI up 1.21. He's another one at 5 million. If you remember Souček, when he arrived in the Premier League, he was that player. He was that box raiding, goal scoring player who could get 10 goals. Looks like he's maybe so far suggesting he could be going back that way.
Well, he got 7 goals last season, and the fact he's already up on the stats on that is definitely encouraging. It's interesting. I mean, I saw them against Villa, and he didn't stand out as someone who I suddenly thought had massive attacking threat. But he got the assist, didn't he? In that game. Again, no, it's just the fixtures. I mean, Man City next, Fulham away, Chelsea at home, Brentford away. I mean, then it's Ipswich at home in 7, but then it's Spurs, Man United, Forest away. There's just not really a time for him, and I think the other options are Smith Rowe and Rodgers. To me, are just ahead of him. If you're rating him against like a Semenyo, though, then maybe it's a bit, it's a bit. But I just think it's one to monitor, isn't it? I think if he can come into a decent run of fixtures with these numbers and clearly they're targeting him from corners and he's getting more advanced, then he's someone that could go for. And he, if you got 12, 13 attacking returns from a 5 million asset, you'd be delighted with that. I think you're not going to get Palmer every year getting 30 attacking returns or whatever.
No, absolutely. And I think what I say is if you're wildcarding and trying to go Salah and Haaland, then again, like it was at the start of the season, there were 5 and 5.5 options available, like Semenyo, like Souček, who stand out so far with a small sample of data, albeit, but worth keeping an eye on. Eze's numbers, as we've said, are up on last season. So his touches in the box up 1.51, his shots per 90 up 2.36, XGI up per 90 0.47. So Eze, just to underline that, I think is absolutely a keep, and the numbers should deliver soon. The only thing about him, of course, is he's losing a lot of his teammates around him. So I don't know what he's feeling about that with Gahey possibly going. Nketiah comes in and strengthens them. It's just that disruption, isn't it? That's the only thing that nags me about him, I would say.
Well, and the fact they've been poor, Palace, these last couple of games, and they were such a swashbuckling team under Glasner towards the end of last season. With, I saw that stat. Only Haaland scored more goals than Mateta in all competitions since Glasner took over, which is nuts when you think because Mateta was so out of it. But it's not just about Mateta; it was everyone. It was Elise playing well. It was Eze playing well. Munoz, I thought, looks a shadow of where he was at the end of last season. Mitchell's not a factor for us. I haven't seen anything from him. So that's when it was so exciting to own Palace players last year, because they were playing so well and had so many players playing at the top of their game. Whereas it's only really Eze now. I know the returns haven't really been there, but he's still been playing well and he's been unlucky. So he's still the talisman and the one to go for, but I wouldn't be moving for him. But yeah, I wouldn't be selling him either.
No, absolutely. One that stood out here as well was Saka. His touches in the box up 2.44. Other key performance indicators up as well. And I just had a quick look at how so far his data compares to previous seasons, with the idea that I still think Saka's on the way up. I still think he's probably got his best Premier League season ahead of him, his best FPL season ahead of him. And what we're seeing so far in the two games, even though Arsenal haven't been absolutely stellar in attack, Saka has been. Touches in the box per 90, 11.39 is the most he's averaged so far in any season. Shots in the box are the most he's averaged so far, 2.71. Even chances created, he's creating chances at a faster rate than he's ever done before. It is only 2 weeks, of course, but he started strongly, hasn't he?
So I'm seeing people for hits taking Saka out for Palmer. What do you think of that?
Well, that's why I brought this up, because I do think that you're taking out potentially a player who's moving into the heavy hitter bracket now.
I don't know. I saw someone taking out Haaland, Saka, and I think it was Caroline in the the chat. Taking a -4 to remove. I think it was Gordon, Saka, and Haaland to bring in Palmer, Watkins, and someone else. I can't remember.
Salah, I think.
And Salah, okay, and Salah. And I was thinking, oh, okay, that is a big move. I mean, we know there's so many good options in midfield and attack, and we did say at the start of the season it is going to be a popular strategy, isn't it, to move the premiums around and try and target fixtures and things. And I mean, arguably Palmer does have better fixtures than Saka, but you look at this data and think, oh, I don't know if I want to be doing that, because Arsenal are a better team, I think, than Chelsea. And would it surprise you massively if they lost 1-0 to Palace at the weekend, Chelsea?
Yeah. I get it. I want Palmer. I can go Son to Palmer. That's one of the things that I'm looking at.
That's got to be tempting.
It is, yeah. But Saka to Palmer, I would have to think twice about, because Arsenal they've got fixtures to come where you want Saka. They've got Leicester and Southampton in game week 6 and 7. So if you don't have Saka for those two, you're exposed, I think. Because I mean, you could look at Saka there for captaincy, and of course Palmer's got Crystal Palace, Bournemouth, West Ham, Brighton, Forest. Yeah, it's a great run. I see it. But I still, I don't know. I mean, obviously they ran out 6-2 at Wolves. How much was that about Chelsea and how much was that about Wolves on Sunday?
Yeah, I mean, Wolves just completely fell apart. And I said last week I watched them against Arsenal, and they just didn't seem to have the fight there for that game. And I do wonder if they've looked at these two fixtures and gone, we're not going to get anything from this, so let's just give it a half-assed attempt. And the trouble is that they've got tough fixtures to come. I mean, not Forest away is tough. Newcastle's obviously tough. Then it's Villa. Then it's Liverpool. And then they have an away game against Brentford, which isn't even that easy. And then it's Man City at home. So it's conceivable they could come out of 8 weeks with, I don't know, 1 point or like maybe
they've got a terrible start.
That is about as rough as it gets. And I think at least Ipswich have come out of their 2 tough games, and they had a good first half against Liverpool. They scored the goal against City. There's a bit of fight and a bit of life to them, whereas I don't see that with Wolves at all. So we're talking about Everton and thinking about them as potential whipping boys. I think Wolves at the moment are as well.
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree with that. I mean, I'll we'll see how they get on at Forest. They've got to get something at Forest because of the run they've got around that.
Yeah, they have
so
to.
I'm still the jury's still out on Chelsea for me. And Palmer's a quality player. I want him, of course I do, but I don't think I want him enough necessarily to lose Saka. I think it's difficult to do.
Well, look, I mean, looking at the fixture tick, I mean, obviously Palace at home now. This is a great time to be buying Palmer. You'd expect him to do very, very well in that fixture.
Yeah, absolutely. He's a captain. Yeah, I think he's probably the strongest captain.
He probably is. Yeah, I think if I had him, I would be captaining him this week, definitely. But then it's Bournemouth and West Ham away. Again, good fixtures, but I mean, but then it's Brighton and Forest in 6 and 7. But at the same time, Arsenal has Leicester and Southampton at home,
exactly,
which is the two best fixtures any player could have. So even if you've got Palmer going into 6 and 7, Saka owners going to be thinking, well, I've got arguably a similar player with better fixtures. So we're always going to be coveting different players the way the prices are, and that's why it's such an exciting season. And it's why we might see some sales of Haaland in Game Week 5 when it's Arsenal, because that might be people's way to going Saka, Palmer, and Salah potentially.
Yeah, and this was behind my thinking with the transfer I've made this week to get myself 1.5 in the bank, because it gives me the flexibility to exploit being able to get to Palmer without losing Saka, which I know Haaland owners just can't do that. So unless people are wildcarding Haaland out to Salah ahead of Game Week 4, we're going into a period now where people who've got Salah over Haaland, because they've got that extra little bit of money, can use it to get on Watkins, to get on Palmer, whereas Haaland owners are going to find it more difficult, I think. Now, maybe I'm being general there, but that's the feeling I get. When I say being general, I don't mean I'm not being Mark Madigan. I'm being generalistic and maybe speculative about it. But I think that, I mean, I looked at it and think I've got to exploit that. I've got to get on Palmer from Son as soon as I can, because I know that's not going to be as easy for people with Haaland to do without losing Saka.
It's going to be very interesting to see how people jump on off these players, because it probably means that other areas of people's teams are going to be ignored. So, players like Mbeumo and Eze and players, might not be brought in for good runs because people are so focused on moving around those premiums. And don't get me wrong, if you get it right and you take out Saka and he blanks, you bring in Palmer and he gets a 20-point score and you captain him. Wrong. Yeah, or it could go very wrong. Could be the complete opposite. But the winner of FPL this season is going to be the one who gets that right. So maybe you want to put yourself in that boat and risk it. And I want to see Late Riser do that, because Late Riser's talked about, I was watching the FPL Wire the other day. He's been quite a boring team from Late Riser to start the season. So I'm hoping he risks it and carries on with his upside chasing.
Yeah, I mean, this season feels like you can do it, but you've got to set up in a way to do it. And I understand why people didn't, because Haaland going into Game Week 2 was such a big risk going without him. But now we're entering the period where if you are going to wildcard away from Haaland, you can give yourself that flexibility. So it'll be interesting to see how many people do that, whether they play the wildcard ahead of Game Week 4, go Salah, go a couple of other high-level mids and enable them to move from Palmer to Saka, maybe to Son, maybe to De Bruyne, maybe to Foden. We haven't even talked about Foden, right? Maybe he's going to be a factor at some point. So movement in that bracket is what I would expect. Or you can just stick with Haaland and skip that and hope that Haaland captaincy carries you through. And it could. And absolutely, there's no doubt he's going to be the top point scorer. I don't question that. It's just whether you can use the funds around him to do better. I want to look about Diaz. Let's go back to midfielders.
Just one thing before you do, Mark. Just that we've got 1,700 people watching live, which is amazing. So there's a mini league code running across your screen now. If you haven't joined already, the BlackBox mini league. The code is HO81L8, all in lowercase. And just want to say thank you for everyone tuning in and watching us tonight, and also all the support with Match Today. We had a great reaction to that. We're definitely going to be doing another one before the end of the season, but probably after Christmas at some point.
It's going to be Game Week 2 every season though now.
It's got to be.
It's a good one to do.
Yeah, it's got to be. Yeah.
Diaz is right up on top of that table. I wanted to look at Diaz's heat map because it is interesting. We did speculate about slots tactics with the two wide players, Salah and Diaz. Obviously, we haven't seen Gakpo or Darwin get starts yet, and we know that Chiesa's coming in to probably take some minutes off of Salah. I don't think he's going to take starts, but he's there. He's there to come on for Salah because they haven't really got an option on the right. So that's been the case for a while. Whereas on the left, they've got Gakpo. They could play Darwin out there. They could even play Jota there, right? So I think it's needed, Chiesa. I don't think it's a worry for Salah. He will get subbed with 10 minutes to go like we saw on Sunday, and he will lose some minutes. But it's interesting the difference in the heat maps here. You got Salah first here, and just for the podcast, we're seeing Salah very high, a lot of touches on the edge of the box, working into the right-hand side of the box, but not occupying too many central areas. And then you look at Diaz, and he's not as high, but he's cutting into central areas a lot more. And we did speculate about whether one of them would do that, and it looks likely it's going to be Diaz. And when we talked about Robertson earlier, it's interesting because Robertson is overlapping and underlapping Diaz. So those two over there are quite key to Slot's ploy. And I think Diaz and Robertson are going to have big seasons.
I used the word ploy there, right, scheming. Yeah. I mean, what I wanted to see from Diaz was a nice clinical finish. And what do we get the weekend? We got a lovely clinical finish. So, if he can start adding that to his game and become a bit more composed in front of goal and start adding more goals, then he's going to be a great asset for us. And, for me, with someone who hasn't got Salah, I've had, previous years where I've owned Coutinho and Salah and Mane, Salah and Firmino. There's always been a way to double up on that attack, and they're going to score goals. And it would be great to have that and not have to pay premium prices in Salah. So I am definitely monitoring Diaz, especially with the run that Liverpool have got coming up. And if I'm impressed with him against Manchester United, it might even be a transfer that I look to make going forward, because it's a good price. 7.5 for a player taking on more central positions in a system which we think is looking to benefit him, with a player in Robertson who is inverting to play those balls and help him out. All the signs are good for him. So I want to be on that if it's going to work out. I mean, Trent, Jota, and Diaz, I think, are three very, very strong options who don't cost the earth. Really, they're like mid to lower price players and playing for what could end up being the best attack in the league.
I think we've got to see where the Champions League comes in, what that does to rotation, because we haven't yet seen Darwin and Gakpo full fitness and threatening minutes. They came off the bench. It was Diaz and Jota off on 72. So we're going to see that quite a lot. But what about starts? Is Gakpo going to get starts soon? That's what we don't know.
Is Darwin going to go to Arsenal? That's the rumours.
Yeah, I saw that. I can't imagine that for 1 minute. Is Diaz a replacement for Nkunku? Sorry, go on, As.
I saw one thing on Chiesa. I just think that's an excellent signing, because they have lacked that option on the right to give Salah a bit of a break. And I know Elliott's played there a bit, and they've moved. Did they move Diaz over there for a bit last season, or Gakpo came in, or they've tried.
Well,
different
Jota's
things.
been out there a few times, hasn't he?
Yeah, exactly. They've tried different things, but and I think they've got the money to pay from Chiesa from Solanke's sell-on fee going to Spurs. He's like
that's crazy.
He's like cost him like 12 million. It's absolutely incredible bit of business, I think. And I don't think he's going to threaten Salah's starts, but if they're through the Champions League, they want someone to play on the right, someone a bit more natural out there, then great. So easy signing, and should do well.
Nkunku, I think we talked about Eze not being a sell. I think Nkunku is. Many have got rid already. I don't think many are going to hold him. Well, certainly not going to be on wild cards. That was certainly one that people got wrong. I think that for me, I didn't want to go there until I saw Chelsea under Maresca and see how it settled. And all that's happened is they've just gone and signed more players and more competition. João Felix, we saw come in, of course, got the goal. And Nkunku was benched on Sunday. So I just don't see a world now where people can hold Nkunku without a degree of concern. He may well continue to get minutes, but I don't think we know what Maresca's first 11 is, because what we saw against Man City was a very different setup to what we saw against Wolves, predictably, because you're going to play differently against City than you do Wolves. So we're still learning. We're still learning what Maresca's first 11 is. We're still learning what Nkunku's role will be. But in the meantime, his price has obviously dropped, and there are other options available. What would you do if you were an Nkunku owner? Would you hold or sell?
Oh my God, he'd be gone without a second thought. I think, I was very tempted by him, and I kind of got the appeal. The appeal was the potential. It was give him 2 or 3 weeks and see if he starts as the starting striker for Chelsea, and then goes into a great run of fixtures, and maybe you'll end up ahead of other people who are suddenly clamoring to get him in. It hasn't worked out like that. It's worked out the complete opposite. And I think don't be stubborn. And if you've got him, I think you have to move him on, because we've got 8 players on here, which all better. Although I will say this Madueke bandwagon.
I was going to ask you about him because his
Oh,
numbers. Look at the pink here in terms of shots per 90 shot on the bottom. Obviously, he's only had the 190 minutes, right? Very small sample. You're not buying into that then?
I mean, his XG was 0.58. And he scored 3 goals in 14 minutes on a Wolves team who just literally gave up. He didn't even start the first game. Didn't even play. Didn't even come off the bench in the first match. There's Tony to come. They'll probably get Osherman as well. I just think you're just moving. You're literally moving from the frying pan into the fire with that move. I just can't see how it pays off for you. You're so much more likely to be sitting here in 2 weeks with Madueke and think, how have I gone from Nkunku to Madueke?
It's like going to Lewis, isn't it? That's what it's like.
It's a bit like going Quansah to Lewis. Yeah.
I think a 4-5 defender you can afford to get wrong, but that 6-5 slot is actually going to be quite precious to us.
When you've got so many options, many options here. I mean, Nkunku to Rodgers, I think is just a great move because 5 million for him from what I've seen so far. I think he's a great pick. Smith Rowe, if you haven't got him, I think he's just going to continue to get better as we go forward. And I'm probably going to be buying Matoma next week because Brighton look great, and why wouldn't you? But I'd rather have all of those than the Madueke, regardless of price.
Yeah, Matoma has started the season remarkably well. He's got a goal and assist, of course. He's got a price rise to 6-6. So we go back to the fixtures again. Brighton do have that nice little spell coming up in game weeks 4 and 5, Ipswich and Forest. This is why Brighton, I'm seeing a lot of wildcards. I'm seeing a lot of Dunk. I'm seeing obviously João Pedro. I'm not seeing Matoma though. I'm not seeing Matoma in wildcards. Are you worried this is a Dringa strike and again you're just going there because he's Brighton and you like him?
That's very harsh. Adingra has been brilliant. He scored again in the cup yesterday. I think you're right. He couldn't do it when he was in my team. Well, no, because we know that Matoma's got pedigree. We know that particularly when we've got good fixtures, Matoma tends to do well. I was at Bournemouth last season when he scored in that game after coming off the bench. We know he started off the season really strongly against that goal he scored against Wolves when we were doing match of the day when he just dribbled past everyone. His style of play is very, very effective against, kind of lesser, I mean, respectfully teams rather than the Cities and the Arsenals, because he is so good one-on-one against whatever right back you put on. And, if you're putting him against Ben Johnson, for example, I'm backing Matoma every day to give him an absolutely torrid time. And the key thing is he hasn't got the rotation, I don't think, that you have on the right and with Pedro, because Ruta, Gruder, Ferguson was back on the bench in the last game. Minte looks great, but I think there is going to start being some more subs for him. And who is the threat to Matoma? There's Adingra who has started well. There's also Pedro who can play on the left and did so effectively for us last season, but the downgrade is massive from those. Whereas I haven't seen Gruder, I haven't really seen Ruta that well, but maybe there's a bit less of a step down from those, which worries me a bit about those picks.
So I think it is Rodgers, but if you're looking at a 6-5, I mean, I said at the start of the season, Gibbs White is the best 6-5 to start the season with, and he has delivered. He has delivered the points, and he's going into the Wolves game now fully rested. Probably will get in Carsley's squad as well, I think. So, he'll be on a high going in against his former club. He scored against them last season. The fixtures aren't brilliant after that for Forest, but they're okay. I mean, Brighton, Fulham, Chelsea, Palace, Leicester, West Ham. It's not too bad. It's a decent run. I think Gibbs White probably is still the best 6-5 there. I get your Matoma claim. I do see it, particularly for those two fixtures coming up. But Rodgers, and does Rodgers kill Bailey as an option? Because you were talking about Bailey pre-season, but does Rodgers just mean that we're not going to go 6-5 to Bailey?
No, I don't think it necessarily does. I think particularly at home, we know Bailey is incredibly effective. And I think maybe if you've already got Smith Rowe, for example, you might not want a 5-5 and a 5. And maybe having that 6-5 gives you a bit more flexibility to move to someone else if that doesn't really work. At the moment, I don't see too much between them, though. And it is a lot of extra money for it. I mean, there's maybe a bit more rotation risk with Rodgers, but I think what we wanted to see from him was that influence he has on the side, and he's got that. He's shouting at teammates. He's making take-ons. He should have had an assist for Watkins in the last game, and Bailey hasn't been as effective. I don't think so. Yeah, there's a bit of a question mark there. I mean, I would pick Rodgers out of the two, but I do still like Bailey as an option.
Well, Rodgers 180 minutes. He's played the 90 twice. Bailey's been subbed in both games. That's significant, isn't it? And I don't see Rodgers losing his place. I don't think there's a light for light there. Ramsey can play that role. Duran's more of a centre forward. So I don't, unless they bring somebody in, which they could, I just don't see it.
I love that. I love that we're talking about 6-5 options, and you're recommending Gibbs White, and I'm recommending Matoma. There's no bias there at all, is there? It's,
no,
I'm surprised you would pick Gibbs White though as the best option here.
He was at the start of the season. It's definitely fading now because the fixtures are much tougher. But for the first three, I would have gone Gibbs White over Nkunku, right? But if you've gone Nkunku now, where do you go? It is very difficult. I would say, like I say, Gibbs White so far is showing better numbers than last season. He's offset pieces, which is a good thing because I think he'll actually get on the end of some of them. He didn't play well, particularly on Sunday, but he did get the goal. I think I like Matoma, but João Pedro kind of kills Matoma a bit. Do you want two Brighton attackers all season? I think if you're holding João Pedro, that's why it's difficult to go Matoma as well.
I agree with that. I do think though, if we see a benching for Pedro, or we see an early sub, there's going to be people with an itchy trigger finger, and maybe it's not that easy to know where to go to at 5-5 because you're going to go up to Muniz or over to Armstrong. There's not really a lot of other options. Matoma is just such a key player. I don't think you can really go wrong though. I genuinely do think Minte, Pedro, and Matoma are all very strong options in their own right. You get something a little bit different with them, but the latter two have a bit more risk. Whereas Matoma,
I just don't trust Brighton. I just think it's like Chelsea, not as much, but I still don't until we see Ruta and what role he plays. And obviously, there's other another signing today. Brighton are just changing too much. There's too many uncertainties there. I think Matoma's probably nailed on, but I want to see more games, get more data yet before I move and invest in two Brighton attackers.
I'm not going to go too hard because last time I did, Matoma would end up in bloody Spain. So I'm going to back.
I think if you're an Nkunku, you probably need to move up. You probably need to start looking at the 7-5s and start considering Jota and Diaz and players like that rather than the 6-5s, because I think the ship may have sailed on Gibbs White. I don't like Matoma. You can go down to Rodgers and spend the money elsewhere. That's the obvious move. But I think if you've got Rodgers, then you're probably looking up into the 7-5 bracket and you're waiting to see whether Jota keeps that starting role, I think.
Yeah, I think you want one of Rodgers, Smith Rowe, or maybe Semenyo at that price point, because it is a very good price. But if I already had one, then I might be thinking of ways to move up a bit.
We said that, didn't we? We said at the start of the season that the 5-5 bracket, it's important to start with one of them because at least one of them is going to fly. And if you can move to them quickly, then that's going to be an advantage. Smith Rowe started well, Semenyo started well, Rodgers has started well. I think you need at least one of them because they're great enablers. And I don't see them. They will slow down. Smith Rowe perhaps hasn't got the great fixtures. Semenyo may slow down in terms of numbers, but they're still going to present value, those three, I think, over the season. Yeah. Forwards, not too much to pick out here. I want to ask you about Welbeck.
What?
Because
what do you mean? Welbeck, top of the charts?
1.37, 2 goals, 1 assist. What's going to happen then with the Brighton additions that they've made? João Pedro moved to the 9 at the end of the game and scored the winner. Is that what you expect? Do you think Welbeck's going to lose his place?
Third in the overall points, Danny Welbeck. He has started the season not just the goals, but the all-round play. He's been very, very impressive. I don't see him staying in the lineup long term or even the medium term because there's just too many options. And I think, like you say, I think Pedro surely needs to be moved to the 9 spot now. I was a bit kind of hesitant to say that's what I thought was going to happen because I've seen him playing in the 9 and not been overly impressed. But I think now he's got the goal and I think he's got a bit more confidence now. He's got a manager with his arm around him a bit more than De Zerbi was. I think De Zerbi was quite cruel to him at times, whereas Hertzler is much more of a people pleaser. And I think that kind of maybe suits João Pedro a little bit more. Just the fact we've got so many 10s in the side. I mean, even O'Reilly, who got injured after 8 minutes of his debut. I mean, hopefully his injury isn't too bad, but when he comes back, he's again putting more pressure on that number 10 spot. So it does tell me that Pedro is being marked as a 9, but then we've also got Ferguson there and Welbeck will get minutes. I see Welbeck being a 20-minute man at the end of games to come on and rest players, and been a great servant to the club. But he's getting on a bit, and we've got so many bright young attacking players who are going to be desperate to play that I think he will eventually lose his place. But the Ferguson one's really interesting because Ferguson doesn't have the versatility that Pedro has. Pedro can play in 3 positions, the left 10 or up front.
Yeah.
Ferguson can only play as the 9. So if Ferguson is going to break into the team, then Pedro is massively at risk because he's going to have to nail down the 10 spot, which might be difficult with the options we've got.
Yeah, I'm thinking that Pedro it might be a limited time left in our squads, but we'll see if he can get through the game weeks 4 and 5, which is when Brighton have those good fixtures, isn't it? So that's what we want Pedro to stay for. Then after that, I think people wildcarding into game week 6 or 7 will be going without Pedro. But Pedro's still being recommended in wildcards being played now, so he's still a factor.
I don't hate it. I don't hate it because O'Reilly's injured and he scored. He's on penalties. He will play significant number of minutes, and he's only 5'5". It's not like you're paying 6, 5, 7 for him. So I still like it.
Getting asked a lot about Chris Wood. He will carry on playing while we're struggling to get a forward in, but we're clearly trying to get more quality up top. Failed with bids for Santiago Jimenez, failed with bids for Eddie Nketiah.
Yeah.
There's still 48 hours to go. I'm sure we'll be in with somebody. He'll play game week 3. He'll probably play game week 4 and 5. But, I don't think if we bring somebody in, then Chris Wood's starting role is in question. Aaron started tonight, so he's getting back to fitness. So Wood's okay for now, but he's not long-term, I would say. I want to look at replacements for Isak and Solanke. So similar table to what we showed previously for Nkunku. And here we've got Watkins, who is probably the headline act, right? He's someone with the Villa fixtures that we've got to start making plans for, haven't we?
I mean, they are such good fixtures. I'm sure we've already mentioned them, but Leicester, Everton, Wolves, Ipswich, Man United, right up until game week 7. I'm sat here with Rodgers, and I'm thinking that isn't enough for this. And I'm not really looking at the defence that much. Maatsen is one that we maybe earmarked at the start of the season because of that attacking potential, but hasn't really. There's that 4 million defender, isn't there? Who's come in? I can't remember his name, but Matty Cash is out for a bit. Nedeljkovic, Nedeljkovic, yeah. So he's obviously a good option. But alongside Rodgers, I really think we need to be looking at. I mean, like I said, Watkins for Everton at home. That looks really, really dangerous to go without. And the fact is, they've got another game and then an international break. He's obviously still finding his rhythm a little bit after being away for the Euros. And I think by then he's going to come back and be a great asset for us again. So yeah, I think you've got to be making plans. And Isak is going to be the make weight for a lot of people because they're in and around the same price.
Yeah, no, I think so. I mean, I've got rid of Solanke and I've moved for one of these players. I'm not going to talk about it yet until we get to our team reveals. And I've done that to get some money out in order to give me a bit more flexibility elsewhere. One of the reasons I've done it is I need the 0.5 to go Isak to Watkins as soon as I can. I probably need the 0.5 to go Son to Palmer, maybe. Maybe in need is the wrong word, but I wanted it. So I've gone with I've downgraded Solanke because I looked at it and thought Solanke, I don't think he's going to play Newcastle. Then we've got 2-week break. Then we've got Arsenal. Solanke was locked, so the price hasn't dropped yet, but he'll only be locked, I think, until the end of the week, and then he's going to go down at least 0.1 over the break if he doesn't turn up at Newcastle, which I don't expect. So if you're holding Solanke, you've got to consider you're going to lose at least 0.1 on that. Maybe that doesn't matter, but when we're talking about players you've got to move to, 0.1 could be the difference between being able to get to Palmer or get to Watkins. So it is worth considering, which is why I've moved off in quickly and locked in the money. What do you make of it? If you got Solanke, what would you do now?
Well, I was going to ask, do you think Solanke is done as an option? I mean, I think a lot of us started with him because we wanted to get him for those first 2 games and then maybe look to Watkins and see Isak versus Solanke and see which one we might keep. I mean, if you say he's back in game week 3, it's Newcastle, Arsenal, Brentford, Manchester United, Brighton. It's not a great run, and Watkins is better, for example, but it's not awful. And if you have got Solanke already and Isak, and you're looking at moving Isak to Watkins, maybe you do just keep him.
Yeah, but he's not coming back game week 3, is he?
Well, if he's not coming back game week 3 and you don't have a bench player, then you have to move him out. Even if you do have a bench player, I moved him for Mateta, and it wasn't like great, but at least it gave you a bit of potential to get a decent haul. I think you probably do move for one of these, and I think, like you say, I think if you are looking at making that Isak money up, then you do need to think about coming down. Havertz is the other option, but he might be tricky for people to get to because he's 0.6. So unless you've got 1 million in the bank, you're going to find that difficult. Muniz is
the other one.
Yeah, Muniz and that was one of the most popular transfers last week, wasn't it? And I think just because he didn't score doesn't mean he isn't a good pick. I certainly wouldn't be going near Brentford though. Who would in the right mind be doing that?
I'll tell you why Brentford are appealing, because I look at the long-term ticker, and if you get to game week 6, they then go into a run of West Ham, Wolves, United, Ipswich, Fulham, Bournemouth, Everton, Leicester. I think that's the best long run in the entire ticker. I've looked and I can't see one better than that.
But would you not be wildcarding around that time?
Yes, possibly. But have you got a slot for Mbeumo when there's so many midfielders? So that's why I think Visser is an excellent option, because he gives you some coverage of their attack. Nowhere near as good as Mbeumo, of course, but he's $1 million cheaper. And you get 5 midfield slots to move across other players. Whereas what other 6 million forwards are there to rival Wissa? Yes, there's Muniz, right? Muniz is the short-term option with Ipswich, West Ham, Newcastle, Forest. He's getting a lot of chances. He really should have points on the board already. So I see the validity there. But going Visser short-term now for Southampton, who I think they could beat them and Visser could get points, with 6 onwards in mind, it depends. If you're planning to wildcard, if you book that in, then fine. You don't need to think about it. But I haven't. I'm not sitting here now knowing when I'm going to wildcard. I might wildcard game week 18 for all I know. I don't know. I'm going to wildcard when I feel the time is right and there's opportunity or there's a problem. Hopefully it's opportunity, not problems. But I don't know.
You'll be a bit conflicted if Wissa gets this move to Forest, won't you?
Yeah, it's not going to happen. I mean, as soon as I saw that, no. It's not
solving your striker problem for your main team, but ruining your FPL.
Yeah. Unless Brentford are bringing somebody in and we don't know. So I think Visser gives you coverage of Brentford for that spell, unless, of course, you're happy to give up a midfield slot to Mbeumo. And there's nothing wrong with that, because Mbeumo will be on penalties and he's 7 million and he's a great player. So yes, fine. But I do think the midfield slots are more precious than the 6 million forward slots, is what I'm saying.
He started very strongly last season, didn't he, Wissa? Him and Mbeumo were right up there. What did he get about?
He ended the season. He ended the season really strongly. I think he got 5 goals in the last 6 game weeks, and he obviously started with a goal and assist now. I think, without Tony there, he's an okay option. When the fixtures are good, Visser's good. I wouldn't go Visser in a run if it wasn't a good, favourable run. But like I say, that Brentford run, I think we've got to look at their defence and look at one of their attack for that run. So if you're not wildcarding ahead of 6, start thinking about how you're going to do that.
Yeah, and you talk about Nkunku replacements. We did mention going up. I don't think we mentioned Mbeumo by name, but if I had the 0.5 to do,
would you go there now?
Mbeumo, I think without a doubt, right? Especially for this game. I mean, there's a few people saying it, Mbeumo captain for Southampton at home. I don't hate that at all. So yeah,
but then you've got to be benching him at City and Spurs. Well,
and that's where but that's where your Rodgers or your Smith Rowe potentially comes in. Or your João Pedro, for example, because you can get away with benching him in 4 if you've got one of those players.
There's nothing wrong with starting him. I mean, he could come out with returns, particularly at Spurs, of course. So yeah, I mean, in Mbeumo, this is what I said when we talk about moving up from Nkunku. He's got to be on the list, because I don't see Tony staying. I think he's going to be gone in the next 48 hours, and Mbeumo's going to be on pens, and suddenly. Yeah, he's unlocked for that run from 6 to 13, which is, as I say, I think that's the strongest run of fixtures I can see in the ticker for that period, for any period of the season. So I think we've got to get on Brentford in some shape or form, and the wild cards are certainly, even the wild cards from game week 4 are looking at that and looking at maybe Pinnock and maybe Mbeumo or Wissa.
I mean, the only thing I would say is that I think Villa's fixtures probably maybe rival that from now. Given they've got Everton and Wolves 2 home games, and then either side of that have 2 promoted teams. I mean, if you were to pick 4 fixtures right now, I think it would be Leicester, Everton, Wolves, and Ipswich. Maybe Southampton instead of Leicester, but I think I'd be more impressed with Southampton than I have been Leicester. So it's close between them, but that's a great run of 4.
Oh yeah, no, it's Villa now, but you've got to have plans to move to Mbeumo or a Brentford player, I think, for that run. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. This is what I mean. It's like if you're wildcarding and you can get Haaland out, it gives you the ability to go Watkins and look at Mbeumo. But if you're not wildcarding game week 4 and you're holding Haaland, then your ability to move to these players, and we'll talk again about Palmer, it's going to be restricted. So it's a really interesting, and it's all caused by the pricing. Many people have said it, and we'll say it again. The pricing has just made this season so much more interesting.
Yep, completely agree. And I think it's only going to get more interesting as Saka hauls next week and Salah carries on doing well and Son's now an option again. I think it's only going to get, as long as all the premiums are delivering, it's going to be fascinating to see how people do. I mean, Foden hasn't even played yet. What happens when Foden comes in
absolutely.
And we're looking at him? Yeah.
Let's talk about predictions. This is the standings at the moment. I've done some work on that. Thanks, Greg. That's good to hear. I'm sitting 5th. Quite happy with that. 20 predictions down. The correct outcomes 55. You're on 65 low correct outcomes. Amazing percentage.
Yeah, I know.
The highest here is 75, which is Hot Iron and Tom Gould 195. These are people in our members league, right? And then Patreon, sorry. And then you've only got 10% correct scores to my 25, which is why I'm ahead of you at the moment. So yes, sign up to our Patreon if you want in on that. Again, shout out to Liv and Lee providing the tech behind this. Let's look at our predictions for this week then. Az, do you want to talk us through these?
Yeah, I think my dad will be disappointed with my first prediction in the early game on Saturday. I do think Arsenal win this one, even with my Brighton blinkers on. I'm really looking forward to it as a spectacle, as a game. It's going to be a really, really good game. And then afterwards, we've got tickets to go see Craig David, who's performing in Hitchin, which is maybe a bit of a far cry from the beaches of Ibiza. But
I know your taste in films is pretty dodgy, but now you're going to see Craig David. I'm now questioning your taste in music as well.
Well, I was be happy to say that Craig David is a legend.
Okay.
But yeah, I think it might not be the best start going into Craig David, because I think Arsenal probably win that. I think we score. I think we get a goal in that. Like I said, I think Arsenal have been a bit lucky. I think we got so much about us at the moment. But Arsenal just have that know-how to see it through. Wouldn't be too surprised if it's a draw, but I think Arsenal probably win it, given they've got the home edge.
Oh, I have got another 2-0. I just think clean sheet machine. I'd like to see Brighton make a game of it, but I think it'll be an early goal, and then it'll be very, 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 very tight, and they'll just nick one at the end. Is the way I'm going. You've gone 2-1. I've gone 2-0. Southampton, I've gone 3-0. You think it's going to be tougher for Brentford now?
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't that impressed with Brentford against Liverpool. Like I said, I've probably overall been most impressed with Southampton out of the 3 promoted teams, though it's hard to jump at Ipswich, given they've had the 2 hardest games imaginable. But yeah, I think the promoted teams in general, I'm giving them a goal, I think, in all of these games, because they've still got that kind of fight about them before it gets to Christmas and they're all miserable and probably in the bottom 3. So not a great time to be playing one of them, but yeah, I think Brentford probably got enough.
FPL SWAT is in the audience, and I know he's a Southampton fan, so sorry about this, but yes, they were impressive at Newcastle before and after the Southampton Craig David link as well. Before and after the red card, but they were pretty poor against Forest. And I listened to a lot of the Southampton fans post-match, their reaction, and they were very down about it. They had 5 shots and 4 of them came from the fullbacks. So that tells you how much of a threat they posed. And they conceded 23 chances to Forest, who last season away from home, we struggled to put anything together in terms of creating chances. So unless Forest were absolutely brilliant that day, I've got to say Southampton were poor.
Yeah, true. But they were good against Newcastle. I mean, obviously there was the 10 men, but even before that,
but Newcastle haven't started well. So
no, true.
I don't know how much of a gauge Newcastle.
But or Brentford. This is what I mean. It's I don't know.
You say that. I think Brentford are just doing Brentford things. They're just. I think they can. When they go to Anfield, they're going to play 3 at the back and play differently. At home, they're going to play 4 at the back. They're going to attack. I think that they will score goals against Southampton. And yeah, I'm going 3-0 anyway. Everton, Bournemouth. Talking to teams in a bad shape. You reckon 2-0 Bournemouth, right?
I just can't see where the goals are coming from Everton or anything good about the way they're playing. And Bournemouth, were all right against Newcastle. In the end, got the draw. But I think anyone playing Everton will think they can win it, and I think they will, because there's just. I mean, do you see the players getting abused by the people off the train?
Yeah, shocking that, wasn't it?
2 game weeks in, and their fans are going home
Not
late, so they
good.
can stand in. It's absolutely ridiculous. So even at Goodison, I'm not expecting a great atmosphere there, and I think you rock up to Goodison at the moment and you expect to win, and I think they will.
If you're Bournemouth, if you're Iraola, you're going, well, if we get on top of them, silence the crowd and get an early goal, it's going to go toxic.
They're going to be so on their backs. Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, so Everton players, what are they thinking going into that game? It's just making them even more anxious and nervous. I mean, it's the complete opposite of what we try and do at Forest. And I'll know when we're in trouble, when fans around me are tutting and shouting abuse at the players, right? Because that hasn't happened even when we struggled, and we have struggled more than Everton. So yeah, that's got to be a concern for Dyche, isn't it? I mean, they won in the League Cup, so that might buy some credit in the bank. But I think Bournemouth will beat them. From what I've seen, Semenyo, like you said, is a good bet here, I think. Ipswich Fulham, I've gone 2-2. You've gone 2-1 to Fulham. Game of goals, though, you reckon?
Yeah, I think so. And I found this one quite a tough one to predict, because I think this is the game Ipswich have been waiting for, and their fans have been waiting for. It's like, let's just get through those 2 games without getting humiliated, which they've done. And now we have a home game against a beatable side. So they'll be up for it. I just think Fulham are a better team than Ipswich are. And, with Smith Rowe, with Muniz, with Anderson coming in defence, with Leno in goal, there's no easy games in the Premier League for Ipswich. And I don't know, at the moment, I just think Fulham have got a bit too much of them. But yeah, it could be a close one. This could be interesting.
I like Ipswich. I think they'll score goals. And I think, I don't back either defence here. So I've gone 2-2. Villa, Leicester, I only see one winner. I've gone 2-0. You've gone 3-1 to Villa. I see it. You just think that they're going to run right.
Not much more to say. Villa are a much better side. They just don't really do a lot of clean sheets. So I reckon Leicester will get one from probably Vardy or someone like that. Or probably Vardy. Something along those lines.
Forest Wolves, we've both gone 2-1. Thank you for that. That's good to see. I think I don't see clean sheets there. I think that we might sneak it. Much will depend on how we defend. They've got a lot of threats, but we're strong at home. It's always a good game with them, and it's always a bit of needle as well. But I'll go 2-1.
There could be very early question marks being asked around O'Neill if Wolves lose this game.
I think that'd be a shame.
It would be a massive shame. But if it's another poor performance, that's 3 poor performances with the fixtures they've got. A couple more losses, and he's gone.
I hope not. West Ham, Man City, both going away win, of course. You've gone 3-1. I've gone 2-0. I don't think there's too much to say on that, other than, we'll get to the captaincy in a minute. We'll talk Haaland then. And then the Garden Centre game. This is the best I could do. This is the best I could do for the Garden Centre game. I know. I mean, it's like, moment, Chelsea. Where would you look? Where would you look for the Garden Centre game if you weren't going there?
Probably Man U, Liverpool. It's probably going to be.
Would you? I just think it could be a double game, because Palace could put up opposition. I've gone 3-0 though, so I've gone a runaway win.
To be fair, if I was going to miss one out of Arsenal, Brighton, Chelsea, Palace, Newcastle, Spurs, United, Liverpool, it would be Chelsea, Palace. So if we're saying we have to pick a Garden Centre game each week, then
also 1:30, it's prime Garden Centre time, isn't it? On Sunday?
Get your shrubbery. But I mean, it is fascinating. I mean, Chelsea. Obviously, I give them a lot of stick, and there's a lot of craziness going on, but you can't deny it's entertaining. Not knowing who's going to come in, who's going to play, and suddenly they're scoring 6 goals, and Madueke is getting a hat trick, and Tony might be coming in, and it's a good time to be playing Palace as well, because they haven't started the season too brightly. So like you said, Palmer I think looks a great pick.
Yep, and we're going to captains in a minute. Newcastle Spurs, here we go. Difference of opinion at last. You've gone 2-1 Newcastle. I mean, off the back of very big wins in the last couple of seasons at St James's Park against Spurs. I've gone 3-1 Spurs. I don't like what I'm seeing from Newcastle, and I think Spurs are going to turn up, probably with Son down the middle, and I'm going to hope for more returns there. Yeah,
well, it was 4-1 to Spurs in December when Spurs were at home. And then it was 4-0 to Newcastle when they played at St James's Park towards the end of the season. So you couldn't have a more different set of results there. I also haven't been too impressed with Newcastle's start. And I think this kind of game is what they need to kind of get them going. The fans are going to be going absolutely nuts, and they can get it at Spurs. We know that. The difference isn't there. So, I think we've both gone different results. It could go either way. But, just because of the home fixture, I'm back in the home side.
And then a cracker you've predicted for this one, the 4:00 United Liverpool. You've gone 3-2 to Liverpool. I've just gone a boring 1-0. So we're completely different here. Both same result, same outcome. I think it'd be an atrocious tactical game. You think it'd be goals galore?
Yeah, goals. When you see a fix like this, I always want to back goals rather than a 0-0, which it more than often is. But yeah, I'm hoping. Yeah, Man, you get an early goal. Liverpool score a couple. United equalise, and then Liverpool get a late winner. Yeah, not much more to say. I'm hoping, Sunday afternoon, get the roast on, watch Man U Liverpool. That's what this Premier season's all about, isn't it?
I'm going to be in a field watching. I don't know who's going to be playing Sunday, but I'm going to be at my festival. So no, I will not be making love on Friday or whatever it is. What's the phrase? Can I get a rewind?
Not that kind of holiday, is it? Okay.
No, it's not. No. This is a very middle class. Everyone's very well behaved at the end of the road. But yeah, so I'll be in the middle of the field then. Won't be seeing any football. Be like last weekend. It's like 2 weekends running. I can't see any football. It's very weird. So
another Haaland hat trick coming in.
Yeah, I don't know how I'm going to do that really. I obviously can check in with the scores, but I'm not going to be able to watch any. I'll record them all and watch them all back when I get, because I've got Monday off to catch up. So I certainly will be catching up. But I hope it is 1-0 Liverpool rather than 3-2, because if I miss a goal fest, I'll be absolutely gutted. Let's look at captains, because obviously that plays into it. Jota and Salah. I don't think we're looking at Jota and Salah as candidates for the captaincy, despite what we see from the XG data and despite what Salah has done at Old Trafford in previous seasons. I've got Salah. Would you captain him?
No, I don't think so. I think I expected Brighton to win that game, but I didn't think Man United were too bad actually throughout. And I don't think they were too bad in the first game against Fulham either. Obviously they got the win in that, but a bit laboured at times. But I think the defensive signings they've made and the fact Casemiro's looks fit again, should mean they're a bit harder to break down than in other games we've seen them play against Liverpool. So, yeah, I don't know. I mean, I say that, and then I've backed Liverpool to score 3 goals, so I'm kind of completely contradicting myself. But I think there's better options this week.
Yeah, Liverpool to score 3 goals, and you don't think Salah's? I mean, Salah's going to return in that for sure. You think?
Yeah, I don't hate it as an option, but would I back him over Haaland versus West Ham? I think the trouble with Liverpool is obviously where the goals come from, because there's now 3 options there. There's Diaz, Jota, and Salah all competing really for goals. So they score 3 goals, and they can get 1 each. Whereas
Bosley as well.
Yeah, but if City score 2 or 3, then it's all going to be the big man.
So Haaland and Palmer are probably the 2 big standouts, I would say. Obviously, we can't go too much on the data. But Palmer at home to Palace, and Palace don't look in great shape. Obviously, a lot of disruption. Not sure if Gahey's going to play. Probably not. He probably would have left the club as well. So really, it depends what we get from Chelsea. Will Palmer be wide right, or will Palmer be tucked into the 10 role with Madueke out wide? It probably will be that. It probably will. Yeah. Surely Madueke's going to start. So Palmer's going to be in that. Is that his best position? Certainly, he was getting in the box more. So I think if you've got Palmer, you captain him, don't you?
Yeah, and it does worry me not owning, because what we didn't want was a big haul from him in an away game against Wolves, where not that many people owned him, whereas his ownership's now 40%. So he could get a big haul in this, and then our lovely ranks that we're presenting are suddenly decimated by all the by all the Palmers. And it just means that our premium assets need to step up. Like, we need Saka to deliver against Brighton. Suddenly he can't really get away with just getting an assist, because Palmer, Foden could be hitting 10-15 points, and maybe that is going to be the difference with Saka. We know he's a reliable asset, but is he going to give us that captaincy option that maybe a Palmer or a Haaland or a Salah gives? And maybe that's why we would end up making that move. Not because Saka isn't a good asset, because he is, and he's going to probably get 200 points again, but 5-10 points isn't enough to cover Palmer, who he could, home to Palace, he could get 15-20 points in that, and I wouldn't be surprised. Definitely, I would definitely captain him if I had him, even if I had Haaland.
Yeah, this is where we often roll out a graphic from Rob TFBL at Rob TFBL. Follow him if you don't already, because he puts out some amazing stuff. And this is another one he's done, and it kind of reaffirms some of what we've said here. Although he's backing, or the spread betting are backing, the strongest amount of goals for Arsenal at home to Brighton. 2.45 is what they're saying, with a 42% chance of a clean sheet. So that would promote Saka. Haaland similar 2.45 for Man City away at West Ham. That's the projected goals, 38% clean sheet. And then Chelsea at home to Palace, 2.15. So this says to me that Saka can hold his own, according to the bookies. And so I don't have Palmer. I do have Salah. Salah at United is 2.10 projected goals for Liverpool. I'm probably going to captain Saka. This obviously helps, right?
Okay. I see why you've given them a comfortable 2-0 win now. And also probably best you're on a field because you won't get to see the early kickoff.
Yes.
When Brighton come away as resounding winners in that. Yeah, I think, like I said, I think that's a big game for you. If you're captaining Saka, you need Saka to be the captain option, which he hasn't always been. I mean, he has, don't get me wrong, he can get 14, 20 points, whatever, we've seen it in the past, but he has often chipped in, and that's been enough because you've got that player who just chips in and then you captain the others. So now he's got this competition, he needs to start delivering bigger hauls. So yeah, you're going to want 10 points from him, I think, against Brighton minimum.
Yeah, Palmer I do fear, although I don't know how many of that 40% also had Haaland captain last week. I mean, in the community that we see, I don't see many teams who sit in here now have got Palmer and Haaland. They might be moving to him with the wild card ahead of game week 3, but I don't think many are playing it ahead of game week 3. They're more likely playing it ahead of game week 4. So I would say to you that if Palmer does go big, I don't think they're adding to the scores of managers who benefited highly from Haaland's hat-trick. Maybe I'm wrong, because we do live in this Twitter bubble and we think that what we see in our timelines are what FPL managers have got. And that obviously isn't the case, because that ownership from Palmer does surprise me, because we don't see that, do we?
No, but like I said, we are seeing people make quite dramatic moves in Saka out, for example, because I think people are up for focusing on that 20-point haul. And with Isak as well. I mean, if you're moving Isak down to a João Pedro, for example, that frees up 3 million. And then if you've got Eze or Gordon and you've got a bit of money in the bank, then you move up to Palmer with that money. So there are ways to do it. They're not really things that we're thinking of. We're not talking about selling Isak this week, for example, but there will be a lot of people out there who've seen Isak only get an assist in 2 weeks and gone, absolutely not, you're out. I'm getting Palmer. He's just got 20 points and not even thinking about it. So not too surprised.
Here's the Matrix. I've completely ripped off Legamani's version and done our own version of that.
It's in our colours though, so we can't say anything.
It is, yeah. So, and this really just underlines the task we've got in terms of identifying the heavy hitters. I mean, Son doesn't have many weeks coming up where you would captain him over the others.
You wouldn't class Brentford at home?
Well, what I've tried to do is just narrow it to 3 in each game week. So I haven't, because, obviously I'm trying to pick out of these players, Haaland, Salah, Saka, Watkins, Palmer and Son. I try in any one game week not to pick more than 3 that I would pick, right? So there are some game weeks where I've had to go 4, because like this game week, for example, Haaland at West Ham, Salah at United, Saka at Brighton and home to Brighton and Palmer at Palace. They're all quite close. I would say probably Salah at United the hardest. You could not have that as highlighted. So yeah, so that's why Son doesn't get picked out as much. So I think Son to Palmer based on this does make sense. And people have said earlier that they would do that in a heartbeat. I can see why that would be the case. I can't do it yet. Palmer has games coming up where he can be a decent captaincy, but they tend to be now. Whereas look at later, Liverpool away, Man United away. Are you going to catch him there? Probably not. Watkins is the one though. Look at that spell where, he can feasibly be a captain over Haaland, over Salah for some of that run. So, it's just a demonstration really that there is merits in moving the money around, moving the heavy hitters around, rather than settling on Haaland and Salah and banking on them being the best captain week to week.
If I were you, and this is going to bite me, I would be doing Son to Palmer for a hit and captaining him this week.
Would you?
Because you put money, right?
Yeah, the only thing is Son will likely be up front if Solanke's not fit. And I do think Newcastle will concede. So that's, if Son was wide left, if I knew Solanke was fit, I would see merits in it, yeah.
I think Palmer outscores Son by 4 points this week. That's my...
Yeah, I think you're probably right. But again, I'm still nervous about what Maresca's going to serve up. We haven't seen enough.
Yeah, that's true.
So that's the only thing. If we were 5 or 6 weeks in and we'd seen more of what we saw at Wolves, yes, but we've seen it once. I mean, is that the Chelsea we're going to get week to week? Probably not. But yeah, I do get the merits of that. I don't know if I want to take a hit though. I could, but I don't know, because getting rid of Son up front at Newcastle, not easy to do.
Is Palmer anywhere near going up? You might get a 0.1. You love a 0.1.
Yeah, he's getting. I think he's going up. He's going up tonight. In fact.
Oh, there you go. Get your little 0.1.
Yeah, but no, I don't mind that. I can see. I think Watkins is the bigger target for me. I think Watkins before Palmer because of that run is what I'm looking at. Because Palmer at Bournemouth, Palmer at West Ham. Again, it's just I need to see more of Chelsea before I know I want to put my colours on that mast in particular. Okay, let's look at your team, and of course it's not resized correctly because you dropped it in late. Let me just do that now.
It's always my fault.
There we go. Right, talk us through it for the podcast.
Yeah, I'm pretty happy, which is normally a bad sign. It's Henderson in goal. I'm not too happy about that one, but it is what it is. Trent, Porro, Robinson, happy with those three. Saka, Jota, Gordon, Smith Rowe, and Rodgers making his debut in my team. Haaland captain and Isak, and then Bentley, Mateta, Barco, and Johnson on the bench. So Mateta and Johnson on the bench. Bench Mateta doesn't feel ideal because I think Palace probably score, but there's not really anyone that I would pick over him. So there's some talk about Isak having a foot injury, which I'm not sure anything's. I think he played the 90, didn't he? So I think he's probably fine. But there's a bit of temptation to try and bring Mateta in, but I think Smith Rowe and Rodgers would be the likely ones to miss out, and I think they're both better options this week than him. And then Haaland captain. So I'm looking at this team. I think it's all right. So I'll probably get 10 points.
What are you planning then? Are you planning game week 4 wild card?
No, game week 4 I'll be doing wild cards. You're gonna laugh. No.
But what you do? So you're not going to you're going to be okay with Jota and Trent then for the Liverpool. You're not going to. You don't think?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Next week I'm planning to roll this week, and I'll be doing Gordon and Isak to Mitoma and Watkins for free. Yeah,
that feels good. Yeah.
So that taps into Brighton's 2 good fixtures and gets me Watkins.
So you're just letting Barco drop. Is he dropping? Is he locked? I mean, do we know?
I think he's locked. No, he's locked. He's fine. I'm happy to play Trent, Porro, and Robinson right up until like game week 7 or 8. Johnson's all right if I need him. So not really touching the defense and just focusing on trying to maximize the attacking players.
Yeah, no, I see. I'm seeing a lot of patience in teams. I mean, I've been watching some videos and looking at teams on Twitter. A lot of people, like I said, are kind of fixated on rolling transfers and having 3 or 4 after the wild card. And I look at their teams and think, well, that's far more patient than I could ever be, because they've got, some of them have still got Kwanzaa and he's going down again tonight. So that's suddenly 0-2. They've got Bruno, they've got Eze, they've got Nkunku, and they're not making transfers, which, I mean, patience can be a huge plus in FPL. I've never been my strength, so I'm not one to talk about that. But what's your view on that? Do you detect that people are rolling more because of the fact they can? Because I feel that. Yeah,
I guess so. I mean, I'm not. I could have rolled last week and just played Rodgers and kept Solanke, but I'm a bit like you. I like to, unless I look at my team and I'm kind of happy with everything that's going on, I want to make a move, unless it's kind of the goalkeeper position. I mean, General's rolling, isn't it? And I looked at his team and thought, there's a few issues with that.
I've seen him before do this, where I've looked at his team last season and think, oh, he's in trouble. And then he's managed to the patience pays off and he gets out of it.
Yeah.
So it's a tried and tested method that he uses. He's just very different to me in that respect.
Yeah. I think the advantage is that we talked all episode about, moving these premiums around. Well, if you've got that spare transfer just knocking around, and then you've got a Palmer versus a Saka, and you can just, take a one week punt on it.
Yeah.
Then that gives you that flexibility, whereas we haven't really had that in previous seasons. So I can see why people are looking to bank them. But obviously, if you've got Nkunku and you've got Kwanzaa, and those players are dropping, I don't think you can be patient, and you just need to get rid of them. But if you haven't got those and you've got other players, then you can kind of maybe keep, like Eze, for example. Like, don't sell Eze. Just be patient with him.
He's absolutely a hold. Yeah, I just think if you had Bruno and Kwanzaa and Nkunku, then it's really hard to sit on your hands. Then I think, but fair enough. It may well pay off.
Would you bench Mateta here? Doesn't feel great.
Yeah, I would. I think so. Again, do Palace score at Chelsea? I don't know how brittle that Chelsea defence is. They were exposed by Wolves. You can't take anything from the City game because it's City. So Palace could easily score there, but I just don't think Palace need time. They've got a lot of disruption, and I think before they can start scoring 2 or 3 goals in a game, it's going to be several game weeks. So I don't think I'd be that nervous about benching him. You've got to play that midfield. I think Fulham do score it, which at least one, and you've got to play Rodgers. Yeah, I don't see where you can get Mateta in.
Yeah, it could be Rodgers that comes out for Mateta. Could be.
Oh.
Yeah,
I think he's going to return in that game. I really do.
I think all 3 could return. I think I'm gonna be left with points on the bench, whoever I pick, but hopefully the lesser one ends up there.
There he is. Taken into game week 3. It's Raya, Lewis, Trent, Konsa at the moment. Although I've got options, I'll talk in a minute. Smith Rowe, Son, Saka captain, Salah, Rodgers, Isak, and Wissa. And then
benchmark.
I know I've got dilemmas, right? So I don't think I'm playing Pedro, but Pedro Porro or Robinson could come in for Lewis and Konsa. I think Lewis starts at West Ham, and therefore I've got to back the clean sheet because I think City could keep a clean sheet there. Plus, of course, he can contribute further forward. I think Lewis has got one more game. Once the Champions League kicks in, then it's really dicey, right? So I think I'm going to start him. Consolo is difficult because Leicester could score, Ipswich could score, Newcastle probably will score. Arguably, Porro offers, well, no argument, he does offer the most going forward. So not playing Porro feels wrong, but that's where I am at the moment. What would you do there?
I don't like that bench. I was worried enough about Mateta, let alone Pedro, Robinson, and Porro. I'd play Porro. I think. I wouldn't play Konsa. I'd play Porro and Robinson over Konsa.
Would you?
I think because Konsa's centre back, isn't he? So you're completely reliant on that clean sheet.
Yeah.
You get a lot more attacking potential with the others. Yeah, I think Konsa's the weak link. But yeah, I'd probably play. I'd play Lewis, Trent.
Konsa's the most likely clean sheet though out of that. I think. I just don't. I think Leicester have got the least goal threat out of Leicester, Ipswich, and Newcastle. So that's why he's in at the moment.
I mean, Porro's got the best chance of an attacking return. Konsa's got the best chance of a clean sheet, but Robinson's got an even chance of both. Well, he's kind of he's got an attacking return him, and he's got potential for a clean sheet. I think I'll go for Robinson.
It's a good problem to have, though, isn't it? And you can see why now. People say, "Why do you make early transfers?" Because I've got a bench. Because I've got a bench that I don't mind playing. So that's what I always try and do, is set up to give myself the ability to make an early transfer, because then I can get on the price rises. And people say, "Oh yeah, but information is king." But it doesn't matter, because if I get an injury, I've got Porro and Robinson to come in. So obviously, if I had a bench where I had one active player, or even not even active, I wouldn't make early transfers. So I like to have a bench so I can do it, because I think I still stand by the fact that it stands to reason if you can increase your team value or protect your team value over the season, it's going to contribute and it will help you. I can't see any other way. I don't see how you can sit here and say, well, I can have 0.5 less by game week 30 and still do as well as you. Surely there is some advantage by protecting team value. But I know a lot of people say it's about information. But my answer to that is get yourself a bench and then you can absorb anything you get. Unless I get 3 injuries, which could happen. We'll
I mean, you showed, you take a lot of criticism for it, and you've got, very experienced managers saying it's always knowledge over price and everything. But you showed last year you can have a top 10k finish. Wait, you just outside the top 10k-ish. Playing that kind of more aggressive approach. So you can't write it off. I think buying Wissa was madness as early as you did, given that there was the cup games to come, and in that situation he
didn't play. I knew he wouldn't play, and he didn't. He was sub, wasn't he? So I didn't think that was a risk. I didn't see the Forest speculation coming though.
Exactly that kind of information would be useful. But I like your approach to it, so I'm not going to mock it.
I just think as the algorithms get more bedded in, as content creators get more influence, as Twitter gets more influence, the gains you can get are so marginal that price rises and playing them aggressively is one of the things you can look to do. If you don't do it and you sit amongst the majority, and I tweeted this out, that majority is getting bigger every year. So the managers who start playing safe, who play safe without doing price rises and make their transfers on Friday or Saturday morning, that group is getting bigger and bigger and bigger every season. And if you want to beat that group, it's going to get harder and harder and harder. So I just think playing aggressively is the way I like to play, and I'm always going to do it. And it's kind of live by the sword, isn't it? And see what happens. But I might get 3 injuries now, or some last minute transfers don't go my way, but we'll see. But I think, we'll see.
Fabianski to Flecken and bench boost?
Yeah, maybe. That would be crazy, wouldn't it?
Oh, there you go. My games have started.
No, I don't know. I'm not thinking about bench boost.
A bench boost to Flecken, Porro, Robinson and Pedro.
I know. It's
yeah.
Porro will get something, won't he? He probably will. So. I know it's awful. I can see.
We've only got 5 players the same in our starting 11. It could be 4 if I take them out, and different captains. So it's going to be an interesting week in our 5th season battle.
I mean, I think that's key, isn't it? Like we're seeing, and I'm going to put a wildcard team up now. We are going well over time, but I'm going to put a wildcard team up now. If I can find it, where is it? This is a wildcard team that I built with FPL Plan, and I looked at some of what the algorithms are saying, and it's recommending something like this. I mean, the Ederson and Flecken combination, I don't really see the sense in that. I prefer Raya without the Arsenal defender, but they've gone. This is what it's recommending currently going into game week 4. If you're playing it this game week, Ederson, Gabriel, Pinnock, Konsa, Palmer captain. So Palmer, the AI sees that as the strongest captain. Saka, Salah, Eze, Rodgers, Havertz, Armstrong. And then on the bench, you got Robertson, João Pedro and Dunk. I mean, Robertson over Trent, I wouldn't have done that. I wouldn't go Ederson. I'd probably still go Raya. But obviously, when you play in the wildcard into game week 4, the AI will give you something very, very different. I think what's key, though, is that midfield. Palmer, Saka, Salah, Eze, Rodgers. I think that's going to be pretty template for wildcards going into game week 4. I think that is the way a lot of wildcards will go.
I like the midfield a lot. I do not like that front 3, even remotely. 2 5-5s feels very restrictive. And Havertz, I mean, Arsenal's fixtures aren't amazing. There's no route to Watkins there. And I don't like the fact there's no Trent.
No.
Yeah, like you say.
The algorithms really like Robertson, but
Armstrong is just such
and Armstrong,
a
Armstrong, I think, is overrated because of the penalties and X-Mins. So I don't like Armstrong either.
I'd rather put Robertson down and bring Armstrong up to. I mean, who do you even get at 7 million?
Well, I mean, with no Brentford, I would get Visser, but then I would say that because I've just got him in. But I think with game week 6 onwards in mind, unless you're going to go, I mean, Eze to Mbumo perhaps, because you've got to get Brentford cover, I think, from game week 6. And I think Visser's a better option than Armstrong. He's 0.5 more.
But, I would just kill that Armstrong spot. Just get a 4-5 striker and move Havertz up to Watkins.
Yeah. For me, you've
still got Pedro, Robertson and Dunk to play. So you just bring that down to a 4-5. You bring in Pedro, and then you have Watkins. But
anyway, I'm not doing this, and it'd be interesting to see how it looks ahead of game week 4, which is when I expect most wildcards to be played. I do think most wildcards are going to have that Palmer, Saka, Salah, Eze, Rodgers midfield. I think that is going to be the template from the wildcards. But we shall see. We've got some super chats to hit.
We do. Do
you want to go through those, guys?
I would love to. So this is from Chimp Flipper Jr. Thank you very much. Why did Ramsdale go to Southampton of all places? I hear they have a bird problem at St Mary's. Very distracting birds. We know all about that.
He gets distracted by those, doesn't he? He says that, doesn't he? Yeah.
We know all about that at Brighton as well. We got some very distracting seagulls flying around. I love that interview of Ramsdale with the birds. It was so sweet and wholesome. He was dropped after that one as well.
I do like Ramsdale. I'm surprised he's gone there. 25 million. I mean, they're in a relegation battle. It's a loan with an obligation to buy. Loan with obligation to buy, which is, I think, what Forest were looking at. Now, he's not going to go down with them, is he? So if they do go down, and let's face it, they are one of the favourites to go down. So all the promoted sides will be. He's going to be. Well, I presume there's going to be a release clause in there as well. I mean, he's certainly going to be. he's certainly going to have the chance to shine. I think it's a great signing for Southampton, don't get me wrong. And I wish he was going to Forest, but I am surprised he's chosen that. So, yeah.
Yeah. In terms of why did he go? Because he wants to play, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely.
And maybe he thought even at Forest, with the fact you've got about 300 goalkeepers, maybe he wasn't guaranteed to, start. And you're cursed with goalkeepers. So,
well, I think we were distracted by signing the forward, and we've let Southampton get in ahead of us, which is a problem. Never mind. Yeah. Tom Meany saying, is Sam Johnston become an option? Yeah, I think so. I mean, we talked a little about goalkeepers, didn't we? I think if you're going to, I think Fleck and Johnston, I don't know what the rotation is like, but Fleck and Johnston might be a good 4-5.
Sorry, Johnston going to Wolves. Wolves, is he?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, he's not going to be an option until game week 10. Because they play literally all the hardest teams between now and then. I really rate Johnson though. I'm surprised that Palace. I was surprised when Palace bought Henderson for as much money as they did and for the wages they put him on. It obviously looked like he was going to oust Johnston, but I think Johnson's a better goalkeeper than Henderson. If I'm being completely honest.
I'm looking at this Johnston Flecken combination, and it's not too bad. You can play Johnson against Newcastle and Villa when Brentford go to City and Spurs, and then it's a 4-5 rotation that could work. But yeah, Wolves have. I think Opta have said Wolves have got the hardest first 10 games in Premier League history or something ridiculous like that. Absolutely crazy. So Johnston could be a factor, perhaps not yet, unless you're going to put him in a rotation.
Yep.
Next one.
Let me just close that. This is from Zvonimir Boban. Wildcarding on 172. What does that mean?
Well, 172 points. So
172 points. Okay, could be okay. Aggressive, but too many concerns. 3 essentials from both of you. More match of the day, please. Yeah, we'll try and deliver on that.
Essentials, I think.
You know what, Mark? This is a good question because we've got the draft coming on Monday, and we need to think about our draft order in terms of what our essentials are. So, who would your top 3 be on a draft?
Trent, Salah, Watkins, probably.
Still Salah.
Well, unless you trust Jota to keep his starting. This is the thing. If we know now that Jota's going to play between game weeks, 4, 5, 6, and 7, right? If we know now that Jota gets those games, Forest, Bournemouth, Wolves, Palace, then you don't go Salah. But do we know that? Do we know he's starting all those 4 with Champions League kicking in?
Do we know Liverpool? Do you know who Salah is with K as a single signing?
Yeah, Salah's going to start. So I think because of that, because the concern that Jota might lose starts at some point, which is what we knew when we got Jota in game week 1, we knew there would be a point where his starts become in question. I think that point, sadly, is after the international break, which is when you want Jota to be locked in. So therefore, if you're saying you need to cover that Liverpool attack, there's only one option. And I think Trent is also strong, and I think Watkins is going to light up this next 4 or 5 game weeks. So those are the 3 for me. Do you have any different on that?
I would just have Palmer over Salah.
Would you?
Yeah. So it'd be Watkins, Palmer, and Trent for me.
Okay. Interesting.
The draft's going to be interesting.
Yeah, we're going to argue, aren't we? Yeah.
Nigel the Crab has super chatted in. Thank you, Nigel. Loving Forest, 36 shots on goal, 16 on target. Defenders going for it. Where's the best value, though, in that side beyond Milenkovic? I'll leave that one to you.
Best value in defence is probably Olareina. I think that he'll move to right back, so he'll be fine. I like Milenkovic, though, for the goal threat, and I think he's nailed on. So he's probably got more upside, I would say. So those 2. Would I go Elanga and Hudson-Odoi? Yeah, I mean, I think Hudson-Odoi is still in that 5-5 discussion. But I just would play it safe with Gibbs White for the penalties as well, and bank on the fact that he is going to have a breakthrough season. And I think with Carsley in the England job, this is his time now to step up and get that double figures goals, double figures assists. And I think he can.
I'm looking forward to seeing Moreno, but obviously wouldn't go there now.
Yeah, they look good tonight. Yeah,
I'd like to see him. I love Moreno. Sumu Nagam says 3 a.m. here. Love your content. Cheers. Thank you very much. Thanks for staying up so early to watch us. I assume Phil's baby's asleep by now. It's been 2.5 hours. What's rambling on?
Yeah, I mean, all your talk about Brighton and Craig David would have put him to sleep. Sure.
I know, absolutely. Emery Kappa, Just started watching. I want to ask a question before the stream ends. I don't know how much TRY219. I mean, it sounds like a lot, and it's in gold, so it looks impressive. Thank you very much. However much it is, whether it's 1p or £10, we're very grateful. Sorry, just started watching and wanted to ask a question before the stream ends. I want to get Matoma game week 4, but his 2 international friendlies are worrying. Last friendly is 4 days away from game week 4. What do you guys think? Yeah, when he was benched against Bournemouth, I think he might have been coming back from international duty then. Don't quote me on that. I'm not 100% sure, but I think he was. And obviously it is a long haul flight for him. He's also had this injury, and now we could play Joe Pedro on the left. So, and Adingra as well, who's also started the season really strongly. So I hadn't really thought about that. There is a bit of concern about that. I'm hoping selfishly that he maybe picks up one of those international knocks and doesn't fly. Because you see that, don't you? When the players come back from injury, you sometimes see that. So if he does go and he plays both games, then yeah, he could be a bit of a doubt for it. But against Bournemouth, he came off the bench and scored, so I wouldn't worry too much.
Who's he got in game week 4 then? Because that's Forest, isn't it? Oh, okay, right.
Yeah, it's Ipswich game week 4, and then Forest in 5.
Right, I see. Yeah,
I think he can do damage off the bench anyway, so I'll still be going there.
Fair enough. Good question though. Very good.
Very good
Delia?
Yeah, I hadn't thought about that. Hi Delia. A long time since I sent a super chat. You don't need to. You're in a group chat with us. We'll answer it for free. You don't need to super chat in. I'm selling Isak to fund Palmer. Would you get João Pedro or Welbeck? Hoping I won't fall asleep before you read this. You've done well to last this long.
I'd get João Pedro.
Got to be Pedro. Yeah, got to be Pedro. I
mean, he's getting the 90 minutes, so he likes him, doesn't he? So
I just feel that I know there will be a bit of rotation with Pedro, but I do feel Hertz will find a way to get him in and playing most games. Whereas I think Welbeck is probably going to be outed. So yeah, Pedro for me. And the final super chat of the night is from Davis Family First. Play 1 of Johnson versus Hall. That's got to be Johnson, right? Because Hall.
Ben Johnson. Yeah.
Hall probably is going to play. And which 2 of Rodgers, Wood, and Garnacho? Or use 1 or 2 free transfers to sell who? Have Naught in the bank and own Robinson, Smith Rowe, and Rodgers. Play 2 out of Rodgers, Wood, and Garnacho.
Well, that's hard. I mean, I play Rodgers for sure. I'd probably favour Garnacho.
Would you? I'd probably play
Chris I don't know. Although I've gone for 2. I haven't gone for a clean sheet for Liverpool. I've gone 2-1, haven't I think? But yeah, I mean, we're likely to score against Wolves, and Chris Wood is most likely to get us a goal. So I would, Rodgers and Wood probably, just because Garnacho has started the season well. We'll raise it against Liverpool. I think they could all return, but Rodgers and Wood just about.
Yeah, I think I'd do that, but it's quite close. I don't think you should need to use a transfer. I still quite like Garnacho as a pick.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'd save it. You can have 3 free transfers next week if you save it. That'd be nice.
Roll with it. I would say. There you go.
Cool. That's it. Thank you,
2.5
everyone.
hours.
You've got to be up early, and I've got to do the pod.
Is that the new normal? Yeah, I've got a pack for the festival tomorrow. Yeah, if you're going to End of the Road, look out for me. I'll be there, and come and say hello if you're there. Brilliant festival. It's not up to Craig David's standards, but I'll still enjoy it. That's for sure.
It's going to be so good. Great stuff, Mark. Great research as always. Pleasure to see you twice in 1 week after the match of the day. And we will be back. Are we going to do one in the international break? Probably not. We're probably back in 2 weeks. Yeah, probably. We'll probably do something. I'll either do a late tackle. I'll certainly try and keep my videos going during the international break. So we'll have a chat about what we're going to do. Cool. But yeah, it's been a good start to the season. We're happy at the moment, but we're braced. We're braced for impact. There's a lot more to come, I'm sure. I don't think we're both going to be happy after this week because our teams are very different, and there's a lot that can go wrong. I mean, Palmer could just get another 20 points and kill us both. Stop going on about Palmer. It'll be all right, honestly. Okay. Well, I've got Henderson, so I hope so. Yeah. Don't forget to hit subscribe if you're new here. Hit the like for the video. Thank you for your support. It's a good night for me. Good night, everyone.